such a pretty hair.
I'll start recording just in case you're saying all kinds of funny stuff that we missed.
All I said was I got a Yeti microphone, and I think the people should know.
There we go.
I'm
How
pretty
you
sure.
guys doing?
Good, Ken. How are you?
Oh, good. I just got back from the mountains for 2 weeks up in the flat tops of Colorado, up in Yampa.
Ah,
Sweet.
Just did a 2 week thing over. Started over in Bailey, Colorado. Went up to Fairplay, and then went over to Steamboat Springs area. We got an area there that we go to, and it was pretty productive.
hey, you
we
got
did some
bad
filming.
internet today?
Pardon me?
You have bad internet today because you're breaking up really bad, and I've got like amazing internet now. So,
Let me go move a little further to the box, maybe.
To the
Does
Does
that
that
hot
sound better?
So
Any
far,
better?
So far, it
Sounding
sounds
better.
better.
it's sounding better, but yeah.
Give it a test. What are you on? Are you on a phone?
Yeah, I'm on my Android. Should I go onto the computer?
No,
Is it better? Is it better the computer?
No, your
Oh.
picture's good. You're looking good.
Okay, yeah. I don't think it's better on the computer. I don't know.
You do think it is?
I don't think it is. I can try it.
Well, you're okay now. You were just bad before.
Okay.
Are you by the modem now or something?
Yeah. Within 10 feet of it.
Oh, okay. Now you're looking good.
Okay.
So we're just going to have a discussion today. I don't know how it's going to go. Might have some people come on and ask questions and stuff.
Kind of like a
Round table.
round table like you did last time. Good.
Yeah.
Had Tom in there last time.
Tom is going to be here.
Yeah, good.
Carter
good.
Bouchard. Kevin can't make it. His internet's down.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Carter Bouchard said he needs a raise.
Who?
Hey guys, that movie's
Carter
out
said
now.
he needs a raise.
Yeah, we all do. The movie's out now that I did with Alan Meek Argle and Ron Myers, who did Alien. Well, we did Alien Contact in the Rockies. That's out on it's out on Apple, some of those platforms, Vudu, I think Apple Pay, and we just got done filming 3 movies. And
Oh, cool.
oh yeah, we're gonna talk about some stuff and some things that happened to us. It's pretty amazing stuff coming out. I hope pretty soon.
Well, the ET people are on the ball, man. They, you go out there and do a little something. They'll give you a little flyby or something.
Do you want to share some of it when we go on the air? We haven't started yet.
Yeah, you bet.
We're still in the green room, the warm up.
Hey, isn't this awesome? Look, I look like what an effect, eh? My hair's blowing.
Yeah, it looks like you're outside in the wind.
What do you got, a fan right next
Well,
to you?
yeah, man.
Right
It's like freaking hotter than hell here.
Yeah.
Don't you have air conditioning?
Oh, I can't afford that.
I do. I got central air. I gotta have it.
Yeah, but you got a Yeti microphone. So
Yeah, but you're a movie maker and whatever, man. Of course you've got it.
He's a movie mogul.
Movie mogul.
Movie
at this ugly. Look at this ugly son of a gun. We're starting to look better all the time.
Carter's there. Okay.
I'm handsome by contrast.
You hear it? We were just bashing you pretty good.
Me? Moi?
Yeah, you're our favorite.
Yeah. I see you've got the windswept. You got a fan blowing on you, so you keep that sexy aura.
It's amazing.
I'm not telling you my secret. Just, I mean, it wouldn't. I mean, if you had a fan going, nobody would notice with you.
Well, is your wife sitting there holding a blow dryer? What do you mean?
That's a Sasquatch. That's a Sasquatch aura. He's getting the Sasquatch auras.
That's it. Yeah. Well, all my hair's on my back, so just so you know, and it's quite nicely braided.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah. My wife braids it on Saturday night, so that's our hot weekend.
Oh, ooh, that sounds kinky.
Last weekend we tried a crossover braid, which is very complex.
Ooh, wow.
Learned that from the SASQUATCH people. They braid one of my habituation sites. They braid horsehair, the manes and the tails, while they're locked in a barn overnight. Interesting.
Yeah, we have a lot of examples, Carter, of that in our museum with Don Monroe. Sent us a bunch of those horse braids. Of course, Igor talked about horse braiding 40 years ago. So Don and Igor has sent us plenty of horse braids, and we have them in the museum in Nebraska.
Cool. I downloaded some photos from Igor that he posted, and they are of basically a Sasquatch with dreadlocks.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've seen those. They were just downloaded or put on Facebook like 3 or 4 days ago. You've probably seen them.
Yeah, they said Patty had one flinging in her hair, but
yeah. So they said, yeah, I couldn't make that out. I could see a long clump, but
yeah, MK Davis did that, and
Well, that solves the mystery of where Sasquatch come from. They come from Jamaica.
got their dreadlocks right.
Now we know. We just made a revelation.
There you go.
Well, show's over. We've done our job.
I know.
Post it and let's reap the benefits.
I was telling Brian I want to get this guy on named Dan Winter. Dan Winter is this he's this guy, and I guess when he was younger, he got this Kundalini thing, and it just like blew his head open. And he can explain things like portals, invisibility, mind speak. He can explain all that, and he's got like scientific data to back it up. I think that I'd like to get him on with a panel, so we could all ask him, well, what about this infrasound? He goes into infrasound too, how that works and what it does to you, and remote viewing and all those kind of things that the Sasquatch people are. Everybody says that's not scientific, and it turns out it's completely scientific.
It is. Science is the first to admit theoretically that quantum wise, portals, dimensions, all of that exists.
Yeah.
And their premise is, well, we can prove by quantum math and physics that these things are possible, and the only way to disprove it, according to science, who posts this, is by more quantum math in science. You can't just say that's not possible. It's been proven to be possible, so the only way to disprove it and have that mean anything at all would be to disprove it using more quantum science and math and physics. And they can't do it. They can't. Everything says, well,
this guy Dan Winter said that in the last.
What's his name? Dan Winter.
Dan Winter, yeah, I think that's his name.
Winter.
DAN.
Not DAMN. Okay.
Yeah, it's cold.
He's a cold individual. Yeah.
Yeah.
But anyway, this guy said that in the last 4 or 5 years, the scientists have figured out through the scientific method that the spirit world does exist. In other words, they have a repeatable process where they can, do something and make some kind of contact or make something happen, and they can prove that the spirit world actually exists. And it's pretty sophisticated. Like, they could talk about realms and stuff. So that's pretty cool.
Here comes Graham. I'm just making some coffee. We got 9 minutes or so before showtime anyway. You better smoke a big blunt there, Carter, before you go on.
Yeah, I should. I don't know. So I just cut myself off. I'll have to get back. Here we go.
You cut yourself off.
Yeah, my wife says, look, I can't handle it. You just need to, have a reduction.
Oh, they always say that.
Yeah, I know. Music to my ears. Hold that up again, Mike. I didn't see it.
Is that Carter's book? Where's that?
No, that's
Graham's book.
Oh, Graham's book.
Hey,
okay.
thanks.
We got Arthur's. We got Arthur's today.
Hey,
Yeah.
Get your book ready, Graham. Because maybe you can. Maybe you can tell us about some of the quotes and what they mean to you.
Okay, I gotta get another copy because I just got the test copy with me here, so I can hold it up and it will look good. I'll just be a second.
Well, you
I'll
don't
be
have to
right-
hold it up. You can just read it. Just, well, like something like, what are some of your favorite quotes and why? What, kind of.
Don't let Brian push
All
you
right.
around. Do whatever you want to do.
Well, yeah. Yeah, maybe I'll just be a sec. I'll be right back.
Hey, Carter, if you Harriet McFeely from the Nebraska Museum that I run with her, we have a book out called A Walk on the Wild Side, and that'll talk about horse braiding. And then it also talk about braiding of American flags. We got a flag out of a little town in Nebraska. The town called us about their flag, and she did a story on that, Carter. So you might want to, it's called A Walk on the Wild Side. I believe it just got put on Amazon to sell. So it's interesting.
Who's the author? Harriet?
Harriet McFeely.
Okay, yeah, I know. I
Yeah.
know who she is.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. She runs the Nebraska Bigfoot Museum. I help her run that. Just so you know. Interesting book.
Almost thinking about getting up there. My wife's from Hastings.
Well, that's where we are. We're in Hastings.
Oh, okay. Yeah, well, that sounds familiar. Yeah. Hastings and another, she was born and raised in Hastings, but she lived, there's two towns, both just a post office and a Dairy Queen, Hastings, and another one, which is just equally as small.
Yeah,
I
I'm
can't
from
remember.
Lincoln. I'm from
Huh?
Lincoln. I'm from Lincoln, but I moved away when I was 14. I'm 61 now. It's been a while. I came back to help Harriet run that museum and kind of establish the flatland cornfields Bigfoots that we do have them here somewhere. But
We're supposed to be having a show, and our host has just disappeared on us. I feel abandoned. I feel abandonment.
Got to switch out the laundry.
Is
probably.
there like a lot of noise coming from my end at all? I have an air conditioner on.
No, there's nothing at all. Brian's got a fan right next to his head and blowing his hair around. You can't even hear it.
Oh, okay. Awesome.
Okay, well, I'm just making.
That's an interesting picture.
Yeah.
Was that Brian's picture?
Yeah, it looks like wavy hair over the trees.
That's exactly what it is. It's some kind of a spiritual phenomena. It's get him to send you that picture, man, because it's just amazing. It's a photograph he took, and then all this apparitions of looks like moss or hair or something.
I
But
thought it
it's
was
green.
a Sasquatch being is what I thought when I've seen that photo. That's blown up. I've seen the
Yeah.
smaller version.
Yeah, that thing's off the chain. It's like mystical or something.
Yeah.
That's
Can we
wild.
just keep that up and not have to look at Brian? Is that an option?
That's good. That's good. Let's see if we can figure out how to shut his camera
I'm
off.
just going to put a piece of
We could cloak him.
postcard over his square there, and then we're
Oh,
good.
there it
It's
is.
just like the Hollywood squares.
Yeah, who's gonna be, who was the funny guy on there?
Paul Lind.
Yeah, you wanna be
Oh
Paul
my
Lynn?
goodness.
Nice one.
Oh, we got a lady joining us.
Chick?
Yeah, bonafide chick.
Groovy.
We're all chick magnets, so I'm sure we'll blow smoke up her skirt or whatever, how you say that.
Yeah, good thing you finished that sentence.
And, I'll have to edit that out when the wife watches this on the replay.
Yeah, unless you have a really nice couch you don't mind sleeping on,
I'm just going to risk one for now.
I would say it's just about time to fire this thing up and put it on.
Yeah, we're just about to.
Okay, let's do that.
live
Hey,
on
Lee.
Facebook.
Hello.
How you doing?
Good. How are you?
We're all good. We're all good. We're all going to talk about Sasquatch today. And actually, I got something to tell you. Tom's going to be on in a bit. He's got to download Zoom. I got something to tell you but I'll tell you when the show starts about whales and the Sasquatch. Because Tom told me you wrote a book on whales, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I studied them for about 10 years.
Yeah. Well, I've got something I wanted to share with you, but let me get the show going. And you can ask questions or comment. Well, we're just basically hanging out.
Push the button.
Is she on video?
Is who on video?
The lady that just joined us. We don't see her.
Lee, I see her.
I see her.
I see her.
Oh, okay. Let me see here.
Do they have whales in Wales?
I think they do, actually. Off the coast.
Ooh, I got scared there for a second. I thought something was going weird here.
Well, it is. There's,
That was your hair.
Well,
Your hair.
if you went out your hair, Carter, just something definitely going weird.
That's
Your hair's going
an
wild.
unavoidable consequence of getting 6 weirdos on the show.
I wish I had hair like that.
Oh, surprise! It's going to be weird.
yeah. Well, my acid ought to be kicking in here about 12 minutes, just so you know. If I start acting funny, just
All right. Oh yeah, you can still do acid because I mean the wife can't smell it.
no. We still have a few hits.
So she told you you have to slow down, did she?
No, not at all. My daughter, she had her daughter 3 years ago. And so her husband at the time worked at a high-tech office and had a chemist. So he made pure LSD. And so she gave us about 12 hits because she didn't want it around the house. Well, she didn't want it around the house for the kid to find. Oh, look at this pretty little square. So we still have some left. So
Oh,
Oh,
that stuff doesn't wear out, huh? It stays robust.
it needs to get eaten or tossed. It's getting, it's been in an oil-based baggie for about 2 months.
Man, it's been like 50 years since I've had any of that stuff.
It's still quite a unique situation. I think about a half dose is what the little squares are, half doses. It's about right.
That's how we start our show, with LSD in the past. Hello, everybody. This is the Pork and Bean Show, and I'm Frank Oliver Beans, and this guy over here with the hair blowing in the wind is Fort Cunningham, and we're going to do a what do you call a pot and pan Pork and Bean Show. So we're going to have a bunch of guests today, and we're going to talk about serious things because we're serious researchers, and so it's going to be a serious show.
Who are you talking
I'm
to?
glad that it's going to be serious.
Notice I'm looking around for the serious research.
Serious,
Graham.
Actually, we're not researchers, and this is just going to be chaos.
Don't worry, Lee. We actually do talk about serious subjects sometimes, but boys will be boys. We like.
If you can't have fun, then what's the point?
All right.
Hey, wait a minute. You did the introduction, which was you snuck that in.
Because you're sleeping, man. Sleep. Wake up. Push the button. Let's go.
Oh, Carter's back.
Oh, you put there's a link for anybody who's watching the show. There's a link on the Pork and Bean Show group where you can actually join in. You can hijack the show if you want to. You could hop in if you got something hot you want to say.
Yeah, actually, some guy stopped in when I put the link in there about an hour ago. Some guy came on and said he's going to try to drop in, and Tom's going to drop in, and I asked Lee to drop in.
Cool.
So
I got to find the show here on the Pork and Bean Show where we're going live. Let's see if it comes up yet. There we go. Pork and Beans Roundtable. Cool. And very cool.
Like Lee's microphone is off.
is that
There
not
you go.
okay? I was
Yep.
talking to somebody, sorry.
Yeah, sorry.
oh no, that's not allowed on the. No, I'm just joking. I actually appreciate that. When you got something going on in the background, turn your microphone on. So Lee, you're new to everybody here, and you're an author. We're a lot of authors here. Tom's going to be coming on. He's an author. I'm just now an author. My book
Congratulations.
is How to Boot Sharks, an author. Ray McSkimming's an author. Mr. Beans is the world's handsomest man.
I'm inadequate.
And Ken's a movie mogul, so kind of the
I'm
same.
working on a book. I'm working on a book. 10 More Steps. It's called
10 More Steps.
10 More Steps. Yeah.
Tell us about it.
I always feel like that out there. If I would have taken 10 more steps, I would have just, you get to a point of no return. You get so disgusted out there sometimes that sometimes if you just take 10 more steps, and maybe you'll get it. So, and I've done that a lot in my time in the 40 years out there in these woods. If I would have given up, would have just walked back and not, but if I would just give it that little more effort of 10 more steps, I got it. So that's my book.
That sounds like a neat cover. I mean, a neat title, I mean. And what is it based on? Sasquatch or just all kinds of different experiences?
Yep. All my investigations out there on how, if you just give it, we give it our all, and then we get so frustrated sometimes. And so if we just hang in there, and after 40 years, I've seen a lot out there, and I know that if I would have given up, I wouldn't have gotten what I've gotten to this day. So I know that that's just 10 more steps, and hopefully you get it. So
Yeah, be a good AA book too.
there you go. Hi, my name is Ken.
These 12 steps didn't work. I'm gonna get Ken's book. 10 more steps. That's gotta do it.
Yeah, I only took one step when I went to AA, right out the door.
Yeah.
Hey man, it's probably a good program for some people, but for me, and I wasn't even an alcoholic for one thing. But
What are you doing going to an AA meeting? Was just like some kind of a social thing you want to maybe pick
Looking
up
for some papers.
Pick up.
Oh well, like I was
girls
the
or
kind of guy that I didn't, when I was younger, I didn't drink for months. But if I did drink, I drank like 3 times as fast as everyone else, and I got really drunk, and I would black out and don't remember what I did.
Oh, you're a binge drinker. Yeah, okay.
Well, I don't drink at all anymore. Actually, no, I had a beer actually with dinner last night. I got no issue with it. But
I'm like that too. Beer now and then, that's all.
But when I went to AA, I figured, you know what? If I have to sit here and say, hey, I'm Brian and I'm an alcoholic, and then talk about being an alcoholic for the rest
I
of the
have a disease.
I'd rather be an alcoholic.
I got a disease. It's a disease, and that's why I've got a disease. I never really bought that
Wait
part.
a minute. There's nothing wrong with it for some people. It just wasn't for me, right?
Well, just the message is disempowering. So they make you surrender to your disease, and I don't understand that. And you're going to have a disease for the rest of your life. You don't have a disease for the rest of your life. You can have a beer or not have a beer. It's no big deal.
Yeah,
right.
Just
my whole
there's
family
no
was
disease
alcoholics. It scared me. I never even got that close because my dad drank to excess. My 2 uncles drank to excess, and it was horrific coming home every day. I dreaded going home. So that scared me. I turned to drugs instead, but recreation.
Scared you so much it scared the hair right off your head.
Yeah, Dad, man, like you got to try this stuff, man. It scotch and rocks. It's just no, man. Come on. No, but it scared me. My whole family was abusing cigarettes and drank to excess every night, and so that scared me. And I grew up in the 60s and 70s. I mean, sex, drugs, rock and roll, the whole thing. Yep, but I could always keep it under control because I had the poster child for alcoholics living down the hall from me.
Yep.
It was terrible.
Graham is a musician like us. And did you know, Graham, that Carter's band backed up the Who in the 70s?
Carter's band backed up the Who?
Yeah, we opened for, I was in several kind of hot bands. We opened for the Who, Taj Mahal, Cars, Journey. And here I am still, working for a living. So that's how good we were.
What do you play?
I was a drummer.
Oh, great. I'm a drummer too.
Oh, cool.
And a singer.
I don't.
Drums is fun.
I was my first band. I was a singer until puberty hit, and then I went to drums.
Well, your voice got deeper.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
it just changed my pitch, you know. I mean, I may have sucked the whole time, but you know, at that point, that was my excuse. Also, I was always having to show the drummer how to play.
Yeah,
No, it goes like this. I said, well, screw that. Just fire him and get
Yeah.
the drums. That's kind of how it started, you know.
I figure you probably just sucked in a lower key.
I could have, but I love the lower key, you know.
So Lee, tell us a little bit about your book on whales, because I think there's some interesting parallels between them and the Sasquatch, and I'm talking specifically about. Tom told me that whales will sing a song in one ocean, and all the whales around the world will start singing it and hearing it. Or
Well, I don't know about all the oceans, but I studied whales in Hawaii. So there are several different groups of them, like over by Japan and over by Mexico. And they start at the beginning of the year, the mating season. This is primarily a mating thing. And they'll sing a song. It's got all the aspects of human song. And I'm not a musician, so all that's a little fuzzy to me. But it's got, different rhythms and different notes and and they all sing the same song. And then one of them gets an idea to make a little change. And then they all pick that up across the Pacific Basin, which is, probably the biggest part of the world, actually. And we're putting a lot of noise into the ocean, ships and sonars and drilling for oil and all this stuff is making the ocean really loud. So they probably can't hear the changes happen. So they got to get it another way. And I've always been sort of out there on the fringe in my scientific work. So it's no surprise that I find myself looking into Bigfoot or Sasquatch. So I tend to feel like I go with Rupert Sheldrake, if you've ever heard of him. He talks about the field, like the Force, like Obi-Wan Kenobi in the Force. There's something out there that connects us all, and the whales are tapping into that. Like birds, when you see birds flying in those big murmurations and they just all turn at the same time. If you really look at that, that's really amazing. How do they know that? How do they not crash into each other? So that's kind of what I think is going on.
yeah. Well, do you think it's like a telepathy thing? Because that's what the Sasquatch do. They can communicate with other Sasquatch all over the world, just with the energy of telepathy, mind speak, that kind of thing. Do you think?
It really could be, because I've had mind speak from a dolphin. I was swimming with one in Calico Bay. I was doing some dolphin research, and I got in the water one day and I met this mother and calf, and they were just circling around me, and I was feeling really guilty at that point in my life. I felt completely guilty for being human, being on the planet, taking up space. Yeah. So I was apologizing to her for, all that we've done to mess up their habitat and the whole thing. And she said, don't feel guilty for being human. You are the guardians. There's Tom. He's waving. Hi, Tom.
Hi, Tom.
Hey, Tom.
Hey, Tom.
So
Hey there.
that's I've had mind speak from them. So yeah, maybe they do communicate telepathically. They did with me, so
No,
I
wait
don't know
a
why they
minute.
couldn't with each other.
I missed something. You're saying you had mind speak from whales or from Sasquatch?
From a dolphin.
Oh, from a dolphin.
And I think I have had mind speak from whales too. I just didn't see it as that. So yeah, they definitely are communicating.
Okay, mind speak, there's a bunch of different, the classic definition of mind speak is a voice in your head.
Yeah.
But it's also thought placement
Mhm.
and some different things. So how is mind speak from a dolphin sound? Just like a voice in your head? Like,
Yeah. And I knew it wasn't mine because I didn't have that capability of having a don't feel guilty for being human. That was not where I was at. So that was not for me.
did you want to share what they said to you, or is it personal?
She did.
Yeah.
That's what they said.
Don't feel guilty about being human.
You are the guardians.
The guardian. Yeah.
See,
Like,
see how good
you
a
know.
listener I am?
What's that?
See how good a listener I am?
Yeah.
I was actually
Me
just
too.
trying to get her to repeat the point because it was so poignant. Or
That's it. Yeah.
So when you pick up mind speak, do you ever just hear conversations that aren't directed to you or about you? I mean, are you like, can you like eavesdrop, or is this something that has to be projected to you for you to hear it?
Are you asking me that question?
Yeah.
I took an animal communication class at one point because I've always had a connection with animals. So,
That's
for
why we
me-
get along so well together.
that's why
yeah,
you're getting along with all of us here. Yeah.
yeah. So I have to be intentional. I can't just eavesdrop. I'm not aware of that. Maybe I can. I'm so new to this. I don't actually
Well,
know.
no, it's just a question because I get communications, but I've either asked a question or they've awakened me or caught me in a meditative state where I'm hearing, and it's directed at me. It's either a response to a verbalization or a mental question. So I just wanted, because somebody mentioned, well, I have overheard conversations that I know weren't intended for me. And this is more of a psychic or a medium, not the mind speak like we're speaking of. So I was just kind of curious how that worked for you who took communication, animal communication. I'm just wondering.
Yeah, I'm not an open channel, that's for sure.
Okay.
But if I am intentional, if I intentionally ask a question, and I think that's what happened with the dolphin, because I was intentionally saying, I am sorry for what we are doing to you. So, yeah, I think for me, it's
cool.
intentional.
It's intriguing, very intriguing. Yeah.
And it's just like having a conversation with a human.
Yeah.
It's so bizarre. It's
Probably more enlightening.
Yeah.
Should we go around the panel and ask people's experience on MindSpeak and how they've experienced it? And I know Mr. Beans, if he wants to start, he's actually listened in on conversations. They weren't about him either, right? Right, Mr. Beans?
Yeah, I had this experience when I was in my 20s when I met this enlightened guy, fully God realized, fully enlightened guy. His light was on and never went off. I hung out with that guy for about 4 hours, and then and I didn't think too much about it because I was trying to grasp what this idea was of being in the same car driving around Coconut Grove, Florida with an enlightened guy. And but then 2 days later, this was, I guess, on Tuesday that week, was going to junior college to one of my classes there, and I could hear people talk from 2 miles away. And then when I couldn't figure it out, I actually stopped my car on the side of the road to try to figure out where these voices were coming from. Then I parked in the parking lot, student parking lot, and I had to walk down the outside of the building and crossed over in front of the library. When I looked over at the library, it was all these people who were reading their books. They're reading their books, and you read in your minds when yeah. So that stuck with me for a couple of weeks just from being in the vibration of this guy who was an enlightened being. So there is to me there's an element of a higher vibration or whatever the vibration those guys are. Maybe it's a lower vibration for all I know. I don't know what it is, but yeah. I've never really initiated MindSpeak, and I've only had MindSpeak once from a SASQUATCH. SASQUATCH just said one word, said brother. And but that whole brother thing reverberated with this whole vision of like, brother for life or brother over many lifetimes, or it was just like this complete family thing, like I'm part of them. So that's my experience with the MindSpeak.
Very cool.
Brian, a question for you. I just got a message from Wayne wanting to know, did you not send him a link?
Tell him there's a link there.
I didn't send everybody a link, but I just did now. But he was saying he couldn't watch the show. But I don't know, is he a member of my group as a Pork and Beans show?
I
Anyway,
don't know.
There's a link. There's links on the Pork and Bean Show. There's one under the live Zoom, and there's one in the comments. There's a link in the comments on the Pork and Bean Show.
All right.
yeah. So Ken, have you had Mindspeak?
No, all your life, you got that little voice in your head, tells you things, not to touch the hot stove, not to those little voices and I've always used that. One time I was driving and something said, pull over. I don't know why I pulled over. I pull over and I open up my truck door, and what is right there just right there, laying right there? A wallet. And it's like, I don't know why I pulled over. Something said, just do it. I've always done that for many years. I'll hear that voice. Now, it does get me in trouble once in a while, but I'll hear that voice, and I just think that's, what is that? That's common sense talking to you. Is that something coming to you? Like, say, for instance, about 4 months ago, I'm at a stoplight. I'm going, a deer's going to come out and hit you. Like, it's what it said to me. I go through the intersection. I get down the road maybe 30 yards. Sure enough, a deer comes running out of the ditch and boom, hits my driver's side headlight. And I'm like, what is it? So I called Robin up, McCrae, and I said, Robin, sometimes I get so tired of this, what's happening to me. And she says, Kenny, you were a clan leader in your day. Now, Robin's very interesting in that mind speaking on how she does that. One time I tested Robin when I first met her. I said, Robin, if you can mind speak with these things and talk with them, I'm just saying, what was the name of the first Bigfoot or the second Bigfoot that I named? The big red one I named. This is what she says to me. Mahalaha. And that's exactly the name that I gave that Bigfoot, because that's my ancestral Indian grandmother. Her name is Mahalaha. And I couldn't believe it. And I said to spell it. She spelled it and left the A off the end. And I thought, is there something to this? Because Robin just said the Bigfoot's name to me. And how in the heck would she know that? So that opened up another passage for me at 59 years old. I'm 61 now. So I met Robin when I was about 59. And I just opened up a little bit saying, how does she, she doesn't know this. And she said that. So it was interesting. So mind speaking.
No one's gonna, well, I mean, even what you were experiencing is a form of mind speak, even before you told us about Robin.
Yep.
And no one's gonna come up with that name by accident.
No,
That's
I don't say.
That's amazing, yeah.
There are no coincidences either
No,
in this line of study. No coincidences.
that's absolutely true. Graham, my friend,
Yes.
what kind of mind speak do you get?
Well, like I always say, the first time it happened to me, it seemed to be like somebody typing a message into my mind, like they were there at the keys, and it's like, HERE here, TODAY today. So when you said thought placement, I thought maybe that's the best way of describing it, because the thoughts seem to be kind of programmed into my mind. I don't hear a voice or anything like that, I mean, I can identify it as a voice if I want to, but it doesn't seem to come from any sort of voice. It seems to come from a direct connection from one mind to another, giving each other messages. And it goes on from there.
That's cool.
I don't know. Do you want any examples of different times that it happened, or
give an example of some of the wisdom that they've given you? You wrote a whole book on that.
Well, was that all mind speak? Your quotes were all mind speak, right?
Yeah, I mean, when I first heard the term mind speak, I thought, well, that must mean that you really hear a voice, like that a voice is talking right inside your mind, and it's just as clear as day as we're talking to each other right now.
Yeah.
And for me, it's been more maybe of an inner process where the words and the ideas sort of are in the background, and then they're brought to the forefront one at a time, sort of showing me what the message is.
Mhm. Give us some examples. Yeah.
Okay, from my book, if I can get
Put
it
it in
in
front of
front
your
of
face and
the
keep
camera.
Yeah, right there.
Can you see
No,
it
we
now?
can't see it. Let Mr. Beans hold it up.
All right. Oh, there it is. Thanks so much. SASQUATCH, Wisdom of the Harried People.
Wow.
And it is a good book, I'm gonna tell you.
I've got one quote from a Sasquatch named Kantuk. And Kantuk psychically introduced himself to me when I was in BC. And I was looking for a new place to live that I was hoping would be closer to Sasquatch areas and UFO areas. And it turned out it had those qualities. I didn't end up living there, but I did get to meet Kantuk, so that was a good thing. And he says, the trees know the stories of the ages. They are the real keepers of wisdom for my people. Every tree has its own personality. Every tree has its own soul. They are silent, and yet they are not. They speak the wisdom of ages past for anyone who would listen. Do you have a question? Ask a tree, young or old. Open your mind to the message of the tree. Know that the message can be relayed to you. See with your third eye the images it shows you. Feel the sensation of the power it shares with you. Meet the tree. It may be the most important meeting of your life. The tree is embedded in Mother Earth, the life giver, the well of wisdom nourishing all her children. The tree is the recipient incarnate of all her knowledge and life force. The tree gives us life, it gives us air to breathe. Remember also to breathe in the language of the soul, which the tree speaks, for it will sustain us. So that's Kantuk of the Sasquatch people.
Now, let me ask you something. When I wrote my book or whatever, like I'm being downloaded information or whatever, and mind speaking that in the same kind of way as in this instance, like you are. So are those direct words from Kantuk, or is that your interpretation of it?
Well, the words are direct in this particular quote, and in pretty much all the quotes in the book. I just got the words directly coming at me.
Awesome.
So yeah, just wrote them down and started putting them all together for the book.
Do you think they knew that you were compiling a book on wisdom, on quotes? Did they know that? And then, because you got a pretty big variety of them.
Yeah, at first it was just from conversations that we were having, and I'd write something down here and there. And then, I decided I was going to do this book, and it became an opportunity for me to ask them, would you like to have a quote in the book? What would you like to say? So I think in that way, the book became even more powerful, because the Sasquatch was able to have a say instead of just it being my interpretation of what's going on. It started becoming more what they felt they needed to say to human beings.
Yeah.
And things got pretty interesting once I started getting more and more quotes like that. The things that they have to say to us are eye-opening.
Yeah. I would say, because of the linear time thing that we humans abide by. I mean, the Sasquatch and NDEs on the other side, there is only the now moment. The past, the present, and the future are all in the now. So in that sense, I would think that they already knew that you were going to write that book before you did.
Oh, I would bet. Yeah.
Yeah, I would say
I would
almost.
most
I would
certainly
say
bet.
almost for sure.
Yeah.
Almost for sure.
Graham, we just went through in that 2 weeks I was out with my movie producer, Ron Myers. We talked about spirit trees, and we were up against the tree. It was me and Alan, and Ron was watching us, and we're up against the spirit tree, and we're talking to it, and I feel an energy between my hand and the tree as like when your arm would fall asleep. And at that moment, Alan says, there's something behind me. And then Ron says, yeah, you have an alien behind you. And
Wow.
Ron saw it. And I'm like, so Ron has brought to my attention of the spirit trees. And he says that scientifically it is proven that they can talk and they do have a life. And it's like,
Oh
wow.
yeah, there's a book called The Secret Life of Trees.
Yeah.
It's all about that. That's exactly what they're talking about.
So interesting.
It's interesting also that their DNA is only like one chromosome off of ours as well. So they're really not that different than us.
We're all within 5% of one another. Plants,
Right.
animals, human. I mean, it's
There you go.
spooky.
Well, I had
Yeah.
before I ever met the Sasquatch or even knew about them, they sent me on a shamanic journey to talk to a rock. And that rock talked to me for 3 hours. And wow. And it was talking about life and how life started, and water and rock make life. And then went through all the animals and everything, and trees and everything was made by water and rock. And then he said, and inside us, and then he said, water and rock, after it makes life, the first thing that life does is make more water and rock. So, and they said, and inside us, the water is our blood and the rock is our bones. And the blood comes from inside the bones. So, and then they talked to me like 3 more times the next 2 or 3 days. So this whole thing of talking to the spirit world is a big deal. And this whole thing that I just described to you was, I didn't know at the time because I didn't even understand the relationship I had with Sasquatch, but they took me on a journey to answer that question of how can you speak to a plant? How can you speak to a plant? And then the idea was, you can speak, if you can talk to a rock, you can talk to anything.
Everything is a computer because it has to log information as per each event which occurs in its existence, and then adapt to that information and keep things going. So a stone is like a computer of all the ages of what's been going on, particularly in that area, as well as a tree, and a person is a computer of their life. So there's no doubt that objects do have their own consciousness and their own way to communicate with us.
Well, the next day, the rock told me about how the rock people and the water people wanted human beings to have light. So they started working with the scientist guys, and that's how electricity was made, right? And she said, when it showed me this whole vision of how that worked, and then he said, then the next day after that, they said, because of the electricity, we got the radio, television, and telephones, right? And then after that, we got the internet. So that was 2 days after my vision. And then later on, like 6 months or a year later, they showed me this whole vision of the power plant, which is the electricity, which is two rocks spinning, copper and iron and magnetic fields spinning. That's how you make electricity. It's rock, and then water drives it. So the last one they showed me was this. They had me go like that and follow the electric wire. The wire was made out of aluminum or copper, and that was all metal. That's rock. Then it went to the scientist's desk, to a little box that they were doing the double light experiment. They did the double light experiment because the rock people wanted them to understand the physics of consciousness. And that's what quantum physics is, the physics of consciousness. And that was all under the impulse of the rock and the water people wanting us to evolve, wanting us to wake up, wanting us to go to the next level. So not only did they give us electricity and computers and the internet, but they also gave us quantum physics from that. And so that all of that was done by mind speak and intuition and downloads. All these guys who are scientists, they get downloads. Tesla would get downloads.
Tesla, yeah.
And all these guys, that's what they do. They would practice getting downloads, and that's what they got. So that's a big deal. I think it's a big deal what's going on, that we're getting help from the inside out, from the elements, you know?
Lee, did you have any more mind speak incidents other than the dolphin?
Well, I just was on a camping trip with Barb Shoop, and we were up here in the Blue Mountains, and it wasn't mind speak, but it was maybe mind placement or feeling placement or thought placement.
Yeah.
I was walking down a road. I was looking for the place where Wayne had his sighting. Wayne was there, and I was walking along, and all of a sudden I felt disoriented, which is not something I normally feel. And I didn't really know how I'd gotten to where I'd gotten, and I didn't know where I was really on the road, and it was just strange. It's not a normal feeling for me. So I kept walking a little bit, and then this overpowering love came on, and I just felt this love, and that, just out of nowhere. So
yeah.
Lee,
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. Sometimes it's so strong it can bring you to tears.
yeah,
Dread. Yeah.
Yeah,
Lee,
yeah.
wasn't that right where the power symbol appeared in the road?
Just
I
down
think
from
Lenny
there,
found
yeah.
It just like there, boom, there it was.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's not coincidence.
I figured somebody was watching me.
well, the Sasquatch, by the way, Lee, you're writing a book on Sasquatch, right? Or you're going to?
Yeah, I'm actively working now.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you have any questions for the panel or whatever.
This
fire
is great.
away.
This is actually really a great conversation, because this is being a newbie. All you guys have way more experience with Sasquatch than I do. So what's my perspective? And I come from, I'm very into the natural world and the planet Earth, and this communicating from animals or rocks or trees is fabulous, because I feel like that's what Sasquatch is doing for us. Just being a new person, like, they're everywhere. Like, I was driving down the road, Tom and I were driving in Yakima the other day, and I looked over, and there's a Sasquatch painted on the side of a building that does electrical wiring.
Yeah.
They're everywhere. And so why are they quickening in our consciousness right now? Why is that happening? And I really
they're trying to wake our consciousness up.
Yeah, I feel like Sasquatch is like the doorway. If we can just, like, all the mind stuff that we have to get to believe in them and to believe they're real and to see them and to know they're real is going to help us see what's right before our face. Like, what's in the natural world that's going to help us open us up to communication from wherever, open us up to the field, to the force, whatever you want to call it.
It's us. We have to be on a level. We have to find out who we are. That's the deal.
Yep.
Because that's why we're talking about all this mind speak and all that kind of stuff, because that's who we are. And then we can relate to who they are.
Right.
That's the most profound thing is the awakening to who we are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And they'll decide if they want to come to you or not after they decide what's in you. I feel like they have to know you first before you get to know them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So I'll go over my different thoughts on mind speak, whatever, and then we'll move on to Carter and Tom and Wayne. If you've, I know you're a newbie too. I don't know what your experiences are, but we'll get to that. But with me, there's all different kinds of mind speak. One is that they'll guide me somewhere. I'll just get the thought that I have to go somewhere. And then there's something waiting for me, like a big answer or whatever. Like I'll be at a conference or something the night before, and there's something that I was thinking about. Said, so this is what it's all about. Because I'm led to that conference for that answer, and then the next day I'll go out in the woods and they'll show me a glyph or whatever that really hammers the point home, like guiding me places so that they can teach me stuff. The other thing is like classic mind speak, like a voice in your head, like words actually spoken in your head. But I think with me, I don't know if the energy nudges are mind speak. I guess they would be, but when I'm talking about them and talking truth, and I've had it a couple times actually on this show, I'll get hit up with this big energy, like yes, you're talking the truth. And that's a confirmation.
Yeah,
and
but that's also mind. That's also mind speak. That's also psychic connection. That's a mind speak category.
Yeah,
that rush of energy.
Yeah, and the other one, of course, downloads or whatever. I don't know if they'd be qualified as mind speak, but I've got a lot of downloads happening that, and then I just have a big knowing. And sometimes you know everything that's in the download, but sometimes it takes a while for you to unpackage it, to get specifics. And the other thing that probably happens more than anything is, well, I wouldn't say more than anything because the energy nudges are big, but walking along or something in the woods or anywhere, and I'm just wondering, I wonder if it's like this. I wonder if this is why asking a question and pondering a question, and then the answer is given to me immediately. Like quite often in the form of a glyph right at my feet, or, like thought, answer. And that again goes to their linear time, that the fact they don't have that, because they can already have the answer prepared in a breadcrumb trail for you, before you even formulate the thought, or that's why things can happen so instantaneously. But so mind speak encompasses a lot of things. Yeah. Carter?
Yeah, mine really started in 2019 when I had an aha moment in Illinois. But I think I'm too encumbered in the material world, not like a materialistic person, but I'm not in an isolated environment like probably many of you are, where you can quickly get to an area that is void of humans and recharge and meditate. But anyway, I was being shown an area, and it was like I was on a conveyor belt going through this, and things were going by me much quicker than the conveyor belt was moving, if that makes any sense.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a ravine that was very similar to one I have in one of my research areas, and very similar to the one I had in Illinois when I led an expedition 3 years ago. And so I'm seeing this, and I'm seeing Sasquatch just walking around, juveniles playing, chasing bugs, catching them and eating them. I mean, I'm seeing a day in the life. I'm going, well, this looks familiar. And I'm thinking this in my head, and I'm in bed, I'm awake, but I've been meditating and trying to get to sleep. And I said, well, where is this? This looks familiar. And I hear very clear, this is our home. It was just clear as a bell. And so I said, well, where is this? I'm just curious. Home. That was it for that moment. And so I'm getting more visual things. And then this past December, now I have heard my name called out just randomly in the house, in bed. I'm walking and I'll hear Carter. Just a couple of times. It's not a feminine, or it's a whispered voice. I really can't tell the gender. So I get those kind of shoulder taps that they're trying to get my attention. This past December, we had our first snow here in Missouri, and I saw it. It was just a dusting. It was a light dusting. So that night I went to bed, and again I was shown this area, and I said, well, that must not, in my head, I'm thinking, well, that must not be Missouri because we had snow today. And so there'd be snow if this was Missouri. I'm thinking. The next night, I get the same vision with snow. So they're paying attention to what I was saying, and it was the dusting. I mean, literally, you could see the grass and leaves through the snow. It was literally just a dusting, like a quarter inch, half inch. There's just nothing. But it was just clear as a bell that it was the same scene, but it was the dusting of snow, not 2 feet, not 6 inches. It was a dusting, which was too specific for me for it to be random, and so they were showing me things, something tapped me on my head about 2 weeks ago while I was watching TV with my wife. Clear as a bell. I looked over at her and I thought she was doing it, messing with me, but she wasn't doing it. But it was just like, and so that, I can't attribute it to Sasquatch because it could be something else. It could be poltergeist type activity, but I'm tuned in to the Sasquatch as best as I can be. And I've led 4 expeditions. I'm in the woods all the time, so I'm connected as I can be. But that's what I've gotten is more mental images. And the one time the 2 mind speaks, well, this is our home. Then they just said home when I re-asked it. So I don't think they were going to tell me any further. So,
but you know what? It's interesting. They were showing you the snow scene before it happened. That talks about the now moment, past and present. Everything is in the now.
Yeah, it was just bizarre. I'm going, okay, now you're messing with me. I mean, now I know I'm onto something because I'm seeing this. And it was just like, okay, I got you. I'm paying attention. So it's very intriguing. I'm very envious of those that are having continual conversations. But I think I'm at my location of being deep in the city and surrounded with things, and it's really hard to relax a lot of the time. I have to kind of get away from my home to do that. So
I wouldn't put one above the other. I don't think the conversations in their head are any more profound than thought placement or any of them. They're all just a different vessel of how to connect with the person, according to our strengths or whatever, right? Maybe your mind's not quite enough to have a conversation.
It could be, and this is all but since 2019 October, things have ramped up. Visions and things happening in the house where I know it's them getting my attention and my wife's attention. So I know I'm on the right track, and in my mind is probably my worst enemy. I think.
Well, visions are pretty advanced. I mean,
I
don't put them on a scale of what more important than the other, but visions are pretty advanced. So
yeah, and it's identical to 2 of my research areas here in Missouri, and virtually identical to the one in 2019 up in Illinois. I mean, they're very similar, but I was shown a day in the life of the Sasquatch people. They're just walking around, they're playing, they're sitting, they're eating, they're grooming each other. I mean, I'm just seeing this like it's, I went to the mall, I'm just seeing people in their everyday, I'm seeing the Sasquatch people living their everyday life.
Another way they can show us visions is through our dreams. They can show up in our dreams and they're not really dreams.
Yeah. Well, this wasn't a dream because every night I go to bed. And
no, I'm not saying it was.
Yeah, but I'm still awake and I can open my eyes and see. I mean, I'm awake and then I go close my eyes back and to drift into what I'm experiencing. So they aren't dreams. I mean, I've had dreams and they're not like this at all because I'm being specifically shown things that are on my mind, but I'm not mentally asking for them, but they're in there. Yeah. And it's like a response from reading.
I'm waiting for that experience, sir. What you're just talking about, seeing them playing, frolicking in the woods, picking up their young ones and holding hands and walking. That's awesome. I like that.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I feel flattered to have had that, shared with me, and it's very, it's fascinating.
Yeah, pretty neat.
I'm green with envy.
Let me share a quick story about dreams, how they can enter our dreams. So I was talking to a friend of mine, Kevin Royce, who was actually supposed to be on the show today, but he lost his internet. Who did we lose? Did we lose somebody?
Yes, we did. No, we didn't. Yeah, we let Tom.
Lost one.
Wayne took his place.
Sometimes
Is he coming back?
Anyway,
Anyway. Let me just message him quickly. Oh, let me tell you about the dream first. So, okay. So this is an example of how they can enter your dream. So I was talking to Kevin Royce about Sasquatch shape-shifting, and they can actually shape-shift into anything they want, even people. I've actually witnessed them as people, and what occurred was beyond human ability. So I know it was just, I'm not going to get into the whole story about it, but I've witnessed Sasquatch as people, shape-shifting into people. So we're pondering it. We're talking about it, Kevin and I, and because he had an experience like that too. So that night I had a dream, which, you know, wasn't really a dream. And I see a Sasquatch walking by my field of vision. And as it walked by me, it shape-shifted into a person. You know, that was kind of like my answer, you know, like, yes, we can do that. And they're very direct with those kind of lessons, you know, like with me anyway, like they leave no doubt. When they give me an answer, there's just no question about it. But, you know, we don't believe in coincidences, Carter, so, or any of us probably. So
No.
that was no coincidence that happened.
Yeah. I have a habituation client, I'll call him, who watched a Sasquatch morph into a moose and then back into a Sasquatch.
Wow.
At a hunting area. And this was all. And this was the pastor. It was the man of the cloth, and he was at this spot that he frequents. It's a hunting area. There's two of them in this state where they live. So he was there and he saw a Sasquatch, and it was walking along this clearing, and it went into this wooded area. And when it went into this wooded area, it went behind a tree. When it came out from the other side of the tree, it was a moose. Excuse me, elk. And also with that elk, this is going to sound very bizarre, was a Shih Tzu. And so he was totally freaked out. Now, being a man of the cloth, he first thought this was satanic and this was an evil presence. And he at that moment, he said, I truly started to doubt my belief in God, because that was with the design, but that was more his head doing this. So I asked him, so that's awfully specific, and it's also kind of weird, a Shih Tzu. Who do you know that has a Shih Tzu? Well, I don't know anybody. You sure? Because that's just weird. And he goes, oh my God, my daughter has a Shih Tzu. And sure enough, his daughter had taken ill. He called her up to find out, is the dog okay or something? Out of nowhere. And she goes, no, but I just lost my blood pressure. I just had to go to the emergency room and I lost all my blood pressure. My blood pressure just dropped and she had no sign of it. So was this a sign from the Sasquatch people that he needs to get a hold of his dog? It was just, and I just learned this a month ago, and I've been talking to this guy for a year and a half. He just would not tell me this story because he thought it was too bizarre, you know. But I mean, I think the Sasquatch, they're morphing into the elk and then back into the Sasquatch. And then at the time the elk appeared, there was a Shih Tzu. And he couldn't even, he said, I don't know anybody with a Shih Tzu. That's just weird. I asked him again, and then he said, yeah. So maybe he was giving a premonition of his daughter's health or something. It was a communication. And he just randomly, he said, well, maybe I ought to call her. And she had, near that time, she had been rushed to the hospital because she lost her blood pressure. Her blood pressure dropped precipitously. So that was just a weird thing. And I think it maybe was them giving him a shoulder tap, check on your kid, check your daughter, you know, and it was just odd. I learned this about a month, 6 weeks ago. Crazy.
So Wayne, I know you're a newbie in some ways, but have you experienced MindSpeak or any of that kind of stuff, or
Yeah, with Tom, not 3 weeks ago. We were up in
Tom,
Medellin.
mind speak with you?
Jenna,
Well, but before you get into that, I'm just going to mute myself. I'm going to give Tom a call so you can
Okay.
continue. So you continue. I'm going to give Tom a call.
Okay. Yeah, I took Tom up to Medellin Falls for the festival this year, which is another situation all in itself. But we were sitting at the dinner table at the end after Sunday night, and Jenna Grover, who is part of the SASQUATCHers,
Right.
has had some incidences through her life with alien life and abduction episodes and so on and so forth. Well, she had questions for Tom because she had had Sasquatch in the situations that she had been through in her life. And Tom was at the end of the table. I was at the corner and Jenna was on my left. So Tom is talking across me to Jenna. And during their conversation, Tom stops and I get this energy wave, for lack of a better term, that just comes right across the table towards Jenna through me. And I got goosebumps, my hair stood straight up, and Tom's face started shifting slightly and his voice got deeper, and I didn't know what was going on. I'd never witnessed anything like this before. And Jenna grabbed my arm and she goes, "Can you feel that?" I'm like, "Are you kidding me? Look at my arms." And she says, "Tom's face is changing." And I'm like, "I know I can see it." But she goes, "No, I can see red stripe," which is, Akanisha, whatever you guys know him as, in Tom's face. So Akanisha was coming through Tom, giving a message to Jenna about her life experiences. And I was like in the middle with all this going, basically coming through me and past me. And it blew me away. And it answered so many things because so much of it was very similar to things that I've had happen throughout my life that I never knew what they were, because I'd never really been into the spiritual side of this until actually that happened. I never really put two and two together. But yeah, so that evening, I took Tom back to the B&B that we were staying at, and he was on the main floor because of his walker and things. And I got him situated on the hide bed and got all his stuff and moved his things around so he could, was ready for the night. And I says, "Okay, I'm gonna go upstairs to my room." So I got up there and I'm putting things around. I'm getting situated for the night, and I get this virtual voice in my head that says, "Thank you for obeying my instructions and bringing Tom. There were people here that needed to hear him." And I shot bolt upright. I'm like, "What the hell?" And I go running downstairs and I said, "Tom, was this red stripe basically telling me that it was his idea for me to bring you? And it was an instructions?" And Tom just smiled and looked at me and he goes, "Yeah, I know." And I was like, "Oh my God." So it was just like, totally blew my mind that night. And ever since then, I know Jenna, who's in, I think, I don't know, Minnesota or whatever, she's constantly calling and asking about all my experiences and relaying her experiences and wanting to get on Zoom and confer with Tom and where do I go next and what do I do and da 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 da. And it's like, I keep telling her, "Jenna, listen to what Akanisha told you through Tom. Do what he told you. That's your next step. Don't worry about Tom. Do what he told you to do." So that's my big
Great story.
thing.
That's a great story. That opens up a whole lot of what they're actually doing with people.
Yeah.
They're working with people on those levels, and if they can get you to do something without you ever knowing that you're doing it, they would rather do it that way. But if they gotta actually poke you some way so you're being poked, they'll do it that way.
Mm.
Yeah.
See,
Yeah, great story.
what I was saying, it opened up so many doors and made so many connections. In my life, I have had relatives that have passed on. Within the first 3 or 4 days of them passing on, they will come to me in a vision or a dream with messages. And I can remember my uncle, I wound up with a 7-page dissertation. And I had to call his son and say, hey, your father came to me last night. This is what he said. Should I give this to somebody? And he goes, no, I want you to give the eulogy at the funeral. I'm like, what? And I did. And the whole room was bawling and laughing. And so many people came up to me afterwards. And it was just like, I didn't know he thought that way, or I needed to hear that. I mean, it was amazing. And I've had that happen to me 4 times. And I never realized, all of this stuff. Anyway, it's just that and other things in life. And so what happened with Tom and Jenna was just like see, I told you so. So come on and get on board and, let's move on and learn. So here we are.
And I want to give you a special thank you for taking care of Tom and, doing the things you do for these pioneers that we rode our shoulders. We rode on their shoulders. And I want to thank you for taking care of Tom and just doing what you do. That's all.
I appreciate that. And thank you.
Yeah.
Tom is a wonderful man. I'd followed him for years. And after George and I did the Hulu thing and we went to the festivals on the studio's request, I met and just talking to him, and he explained to me what some of my experiences were throughout. And so we just immediately connected. And now he's, for lack of a better term, he's my mentor. Anything questions I have, I go to Tom.
I've had
I do anything for that man. I do anything for that man.
You bet. I've had Igor and David Pilates and Dennis Poles, and from the Erickson Project was my mentor. Dennis was, and we're special people, and it's great that we're doing for Tom. So thank you.
Yeah, I don't know where Tom went. I phoned him. He's not answering.
Actually, Brian, if you look at the time,
We might lunch.
it's lunchtime. It's lunchtime down there, and he's
No, it's not.
Best meal of the day. So
It's not lunchtime yet.
Isn't it?
It's
He
11 o'clock.
he was dozing off. He
Yeah.
might just feel sleepy,
Oh, okay.
I think it's happy
Did
Elk
you see him
Tuesday.
dozing
It may
off,
be
Brian?
one.
Did you see him when he was dozing off? Did you see that?
Yeah, he was sleeping through most of it, but that's okay. So
Well, that's what I'm saying.
That's
He's an old guy. Then people need their nap.
Yep.
That's not him
So
and
Lee,
Bob.
Lee, you're gonna be writing a book on Sasquatch. Did you want to ask any of this distinguished
Where?
panel any questions about Sasquatch? Yeah, that was a joke. But
Well, I thought it was interesting, the story that Carter was telling about the Sasquatch changing from a Sasquatch to an elk, and then the little dog that ran out. Do you think, and that made me think about cloaking. Do you think they're doing this? If they can cloak, can they just project another image? And was the dog maybe a little one that was behind, maybe a juvenile that was behind the tree that came out as the dog? And did they read somebody's mind to figure out? I don't know. That brought up a lot of questions for me.
from my opinion, from what I've experienced, I don't think it's an opinion. They can give us any visual, audible, or sensory experience that they want.
Mm-hmm.
So if they want to show themselves to you as a dog, they can do that. As a person, you can be walking along the forest path and whatever, and you can hear like a big kaboom or something like it feels like the whole sky is falling in or whatever, and maybe only 1 or 2 people out of a group of 4 will hear it. Other people won't hear anything. So they can individualize, and like I said, they can give us any experience, audible, visual, or sensory experience that they want.
Yeah, and
So-
he I talked to the preacher after the fact. He, being a man of the cloth, he went straight to, that's the devil. That's the devil testing my belief.
Right.
Because when you're transformed from one thing to another, in his religious world, that is demonic.
Mhm.
But then the little Shih Tzu, and like Leah kind of liked the analogy, and maybe it was a juvenile, because that's interesting. I hadn't even thought about that. But when he saw that Shih Tzu, and then at the time the Shih Tzu appeared, it morphed back, the elk morphed back into the Sasquatch and kept walking. It was just doing a slow walk across, and the Shih Tzu was kind of sitting in front, and it walked through. And he was putting a strictly religious connotation on it. When I asked him about the Shih Tzu, he said, I don't know. And I said, you sure? That's a very specific. He goes, oh my God, my daughter has one. And
Yeah.
he made the phone call and found out she was in bad health. It was just an odd thing. So I think he was getting a shoulder tap, and he's been very reluctant to believe some of the things he's seen and experienced on another piece of land, which I'm monitoring as well, because he's strictly religious, but he has come to the dark side with the rest of us now, because he realizes, there are other things going on, and they're not satanic, and it's opened up everything for him. He's just like, his mind is exploding. So yeah, that was interesting. And substituting a daughter or an ill relative or child with something you can relate to.
Yeah.
I got a story, Lee, that will actually.
I think that was a teaching about no space, about all one and no space, because to me what that demonstrates is that this preacher was a friend of Carter's, right? And Carter's a friend with the Sasquatch. So the Sasquatch connected to Carter, and the Carter's connected to the preacher, and this whole event of the preacher going out there and seeing the moose and then turning into a Sasquatch and the little dog. The Sasquatch have the ability to do this because they can go to Brian had this story of hearing an avalanche in the spring, where the Sasquatch was in another time and transmitting the sound of an avalanche into Brian in real time. And that's what it means to be in no space. So it's entirely possible that this Sasquatch was able to see the preacher, know what he needed in terms of this idea of the demonic, and go and see an image of the actual Sasquatch, of the actual Shih Tzu that was the preacher's daughter's Shih Tzu. He actually brought that image into reality, so that the preacher could see that dog. That's entirely possible. I have a great story about that. When everybody's finished, I'll tell that story.
Let me just tell Lee a story about. Let me just tell Lee quickly a story about exactly what he's talking about. So I was walking along a forest path with a young friend of mine, and this guy, Sasquatch won't show themselves to you until you're ready to see them. Okay, took me 3 years of everyday experiences, like crazy, wild, supernatural experiences before I actually saw one. But so anyway, we're walking along the forest path, and it's maybe 12 feet wide, and right in front of me, a Sasquatch appears out of thin air, like materialized out of thin air. So it walked across maybe 3/4 of the path, materialized out of thin air, and then walked up the slope and disappeared. And I said to my friend, "Did you see that Sasquatch?" I said, "Whoa!" And I was quite excited. And he said, "Oh, you mean that little dog?" He saw a little dog because they didn't want him to see them in the true form. So he saw a little dog, right? And there's another, and I'll just go to the end of the day on that day because it brings in another element of this. So we decided to go to another area at the end. It was actually a 3-day camping trip. We went to this other area, and I got a thought in my head. And it was actually dark out, and I had a swivel headlamp on my head, and it was pointed down. I just got thought placement in my head because you recognize it when it happens all the time. You recognize it for what it is. And it was, I wonder if they left a glyph. here. So I turned the headlamp on, and right underneath me was the signature, beautiful signature of Forstner, which is a 4, lit up right in my spotlight, his signature. And he was telling me that that was me who walked across the forest path, kind of thing. So,
Wow. That is an amazing story. Wow.
well,
Cool.
it's not unusual for them, though, you know. But yeah, so
A
like
lot
I
of what
said,
they do is teachings, and you have to stitch it together yourself. You know, like Carter had to stitch it together. What was really going on? The preacher had to figure it out. And cope with it. Maybe he still hasn't coped with it, but like Wayne was given a great teaching, you know, and he has to process that and make sense of it and let that be part of the reality. You know, that's, to me, that's all teaching. Whenever there's anything paranormal involved, they're showing you something, and that's a great blessing in a way. I mean, we get to see masters doing stuff, you know. It's and like when your dolphin spoke to you, what a gift that was. That just puts you in another whole world. I mean, now there's a world of interspecies communication and compassion and things like that.
Yeah. And it took me 20 years to integrate that and come to accept that that's what happened. So we have our own beliefs we got to get through, which is probably the teaching. You know, there's more out here than you're seeing with your physical eyes or hearing with your physical ears. Yeah. So sounds like Sasquatch are great teachers.
oh my God,
Yeah.
they're amazing, and so loving too. They're amazing teachers. And
Yeah,
very
the homework's
thorough.
a bitch.
What's that?
The homework is a bitch.
Yeah.
Makes you think way too much.
I agree with
It
Carter on
never
that one.
ends.
You know, they're great on the curve though, so we're all good. You
Oh, good.
know.
Does anyone remember some people who are interspecies communicators and that they were communicating with Sasquatch as well as dolphins? There was a lady who was doing so, and she was being interviewed by Christopher Munch. Maybe you guys know that name, Christopher Munch. He did a movie called Letters from the Big Man.
Right.
I know the movie.
And yeah, I used to interview different Sasquatch
I know that
communicators.
lady. What's her name? Her name's
I can't
Gloria,
remember her
I
name.
know the
Wise.
name too. She
Jan
swims
Wise.
with the dolphins.
We talking
Huh?
about Jan Wise?
That's who
No.
I'm talking about. Exactly. Thank
Jan
you.
Weiss actually came to me in a vision, gave me a vision when she died. And I didn't even know who she was. I had to look her up. I figured it out. But wow, what a powerful lady she was. She talked to Sasquatch and whales and elephants.
Did she
She was
swim
great.
with the dolphins? I think Ron Moorhead's mentioned her before. Did she?
Probably.
There's another woman in Hawaii, Joan Ocean.
Ocean, that's the one I'm thinking of.
Yeah, and she had a whole dolphin study. I met her when I
Yeah,
was doing my
that's what I'm
dolphin
thinking.
stuff in Hawaii, and yeah, and then she went on to do Sasquatch. So, there's a connection. What is that? That's one of those
I don't know.
crazy things.
You brought up a connection too, so there must be one. I mean, you know, in the whales and Sasquatch. I mean,
Yeah, there's
they're all
something.
picking up the same vibes. It's
Well, whales
Oh, yeah.
obviously connect with energy like the Sasquatch do.
mhm.
Sasquatch are all, well, we were all energy beings. We've just forgotten we've been dumbed down to forget our abilities in that regard.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
And yeah,
I've been fascinated by whales and dolphins since I was a child because I knew that they had not just a comparable intelligence to ours, but one that probably goes far beyond ours. And you know what's a great scene in one of the Star Trek movies is when Mr. Spock, he jumps into an aquarium pool with a humpback whale and he goes right to its face and he puts his hands on its temples and he starts psychically communicating with that whale. And William Shatner, Captain Kirk, he has to say to the guy, well, my friend there, he had a bit too much LDS in the 60s.
He was mind melding with the humpback whale.
Yeah. So
you
yeah.
mean LSD?
Yeah.
he meant
No,
LSD.
in
yeah.
the film, he says LDS.
Yeah, he says LDS.
To
Yeah.
make the guy go, what?
By the way, Carter, is that LSD kicking in yet?
A little bit.
A little bit.
I'm very
I don't know, it
hungry
might be
for
a
some
dud.
reason. I think I'm going to start eating my fingernails, which look like banana loaves to me right now.
That's a good sign. Yeah.
Hey, Wayne, I got a question. You mentioned
Yeah.
a power symbol.
Yeah.
Now, I have another family that I'm monitoring, and they're getting all kinds of glyphs left in their yard. And is there a agreed to symbology and a meaning for certain things like the fours or the triangles?
Wait a minute.
You want to talk
already-
to Tom?
we already
You wanna
talked
talk to
about
Tom
that.
and Brian on that one.
Huh?
We already talked about this. I've
Talk
told
to
you
Tom and Brian on
many,
that
many
one.
times.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you told me it's specific to the person. They have to
It
figure
is.
out.
It is
Yeah,
specific
well,
to
he
the person.
can't. So I
But
just
there
wondered
are
if
certain ones that are generic across the board, like the power symbol. It looks nothing more than an asterisk made out of twigs.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
But that's what I was getting at. Is there something that I could clue them into as to what if they see some of these signatures? Most of them are triangles, fours, triangles with 3 rocks inside, and he's been shown in a vision
Right.
him going through space and seeing the Earth, Saturn, and the Moon, and he's in this triangular kind of transparent craft, and he's going through. And this all just started up with him about 6 months ago. So I was just wondering if there's, categorically, will
Brian,
generic
Brian,
symbols.
Brian, correct me if I'm wrong, but doesn't Tom say that he's identified like 300 to 500? Brian?
Left messages?
Yeah, generic glyph messages that are not just specific, but almost like Egyptian hieroglyphs, like the power
Well,
symbol.
once again, they're personal to him though, too, right? I don't think 300 to 500. Maybe he's talking about specific glyphs that he can read or whatever, but they might have some of the same symbols on them.
Yeah, well, I know like the power symbol and X is welcome or we're here. I mean, there's several different ones that aren't just specific for a certain person, but they can be construed as generic, like the power symbol. I don't know. I'm way out of my league.
From my experience, well, I mean, it's just my experience. So it might just be the way that they're teaching me, whatever. They're all specific to your understanding of them.
Right.
For instance, like I document all my glyphs. So when I come up with a meaning for them, they'll start communicating with me right away according to that meaning. And not only that, I'll look back at glyphs that I took pictures of years and years before, and I'll see the same symbols mixed into messages I knew the meaning of, other than maybe that one particular aspect of it. And it's so consistent with the message. It's like they knew even before I knew what they meant, that I was going to come up with that understanding. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Let me see if I can. You guys keep talking. Let me see if I can show.
Hey, Wayne, let me add something to you. You said your friend girl there, she's like an ET contactee, right? And she's connected. And now she's connected.
Jenna Grover, she's one of the SASQUATCHers.
Well, let me tell you some facts you can pass on to her. That the Sasquatch are the 6th most seen beings on craft.
Yeah, she's seen them too.
Yeah, so to see them on craft, okay, this is pretty astounding, because a lot of people, they don't think of seeing a Sasquatch on a craft, but it's true. And there's 45 or so things that the Sasquatch and the ETs have in common. Like the Men in Black, both of them don't like to be seen. They both primarily work in dreams and mind spec. There's like 45 things that they're the same. So to me, they're pretty much on the same team. And if you wanted, you can pass along that this lady, Barbara Lamb, I think that's her name, right? Barbara?
Yeah, Barbara Lamb.
Barbara Lamb, yeah. She's a UFO researcher and she researches Sasquatch. Well, when she went down to South America, she found out that 50% of the people who go on a craft in South America say it was a Sasquatch crew and a Sasquatch craft. So in North America, we see primarily the grays and then other different types of people take people on a craft, and we're talking about millions and millions of people.
Right.
And if the same numbers are going on in South America, which I think they are, that means that by extension, the Sasquatch can't just do that in one craft. They would have to have fleets of craft to see, several million people over a few years' time, over 10 years' time. That's
Right,
just
not
the
more.
logistics of seeing that is, means you have to have a fleet of craft or a big
Right.
organization. So that's kind of some interesting news, so the marriage between the Sasquatch and ET is very real, and I think they're on the same team, doing the same kind of stuff of giving human beings experiences, upgrading their energy, expanding their mind, and giving them more understandings and connecting them to a higher self.
I remember checking out some text on a YouTube video, and it said Sasquatches are often seen on UFOs with white lab coats on and piloting the UFOs. And this seemed so wild to me at the time. But yeah, at this point, it doesn't seem so wild to me anymore.
Not at all. Okay, Carter, I'll show you what I'm talking about, okay, as far as my understanding of glyphs and personal meaning of them. So let me just bring up the screen share here. Can you guys see that?
Not yet.
No.
TikTok, it hadn't popped up yet.
There it goes.
There it is.
There it goes.
You see it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so, and I just don't speculate on the meanings when they're personal to me, because I've got literally hundreds and hundreds of examples of each of them, and they're all in context and presented according to my meaning, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So this fish kind of thing here represents my wife and I, right? It's the fish glyph. And I know it represents other things to other people, but that's my meaning. And it talks about our connection, right? Okay. So follow along here. So I came up with the meaning for the Y stick, which is man Sasquatch connected. But 5 or 6 years after I initially took this picture, because I was doing a video on, I guess, my wife and myself's connection and the fish glyphs. And this is one of my favorites. One of the reasons I like it so much is it's just beautiful. And this is the female Raja Say left this, because she's very decorative and very sentimental and stuff. So that's another reason I liked it. She leaves little leaves and stuff. So I'm looking back at, trying to find this picture of this favorite picture of my wife's and I fish glyph, and I could show you hundreds of these. So anyway, but at the time, I didn't really know what this meant when I took the picture. Okay, 5 years later, I came up with the meaning for the Y stick. So you can see how perfect it is for the message. This means my wife and I are connected. Man, or Sasquatch is the longer one, and man are connected to Shap, and we are connected to you. Do you see how that is just perfect? You see what I'm saying?
Oh,
And
yeah.
if you were to take that branch on the way across, the branch with the leaf on it on the way across, you would have almost a religious symbol for fish.
Yeah, it also means the Christ symbol, whatever, but it's usually the other way. It's usually the other way. But like I said, for me, and I'm not going to say there's nothing across the board meaning. I'm just talking about, for me personally, the way they teach me, it's all individual meaning. I'll show you one more quickly. So you see this little glyph here?
Mm-hmm.
You guys can see it now?
Yeah.
So the wife and I are camping in a tent, and I'm going to try to go as quickly as I can. And she heard heavy breathing in the bushes off to our left, which is, the right in this picture, like of a big individual breathing. And she said, "Oh, that's Forshna." she just had a knowing that it was fortunate. My wife's very gifted in a lot of intuitive ways and whatever, and that's what she said. And did we lose another lady? Or not another lady? Did we lose our lady?
No, we've actually gained one. We're back to 8.
Okay, anyway, so she heard the individual fortunate breathing in the bushes, watching us as we were sitting in front of our tent. So that night we went to bed in the tent. The next morning, I found this glyph about 10 feet right in front of the tent, right in front of us. And it 100% was not there the night before, because I'm a glyph guy, so I scoured the area. 100% not there. So what it represents is sometimes they will literally draw what they see you doing. Okay. So what they drew here is, as you can see, here's a tent, right? Can you make that out? Here's a tent. She even got the tent floor and the pegs in the ground. And my wife Sue said they even know how to make a tent. She was commenting on the pegs. So inside the tent, there are 2 individuals, my wife and I, represented by these 2 little peel sticks. Outside is the bigger individual, Fortuna, the Sasquatch, who was watching us. And, you know, you can see it's size appropriate too, because they quite often will go size appropriate with these things. And on the roof is an X, which is a friendship welcome. So he drew what he saw us doing, being inside the tent and him watching, and he gave us a friendship welcome sign, which is the X, and one I knew at that time and is very, very common. But here's the thing. I noticed this piece here initially, but I could never figure out what it meant. I said, I wonder what that means. Okay.
Why?
So, yeah. So about 5 years later,
Stuck out to me too.
So about 5 years later, I'm looking back on it after I came up with the meaning for the Y stick. And as you can see, forms a Y, right?
Yeah.
So it's perfect with this message. Friendship welcome, man, Sasquatch connected.
And then,
Yeah. So, you know, it's very easy to read, right? And like I said, they knew this, that I would know the meaning of the Y stick 5 years or 5 or 6 years before I came up with it. So it's just incredible how that works. And that's my experience with glyphs, is they are personal to you, but
Yeah, I get that. And so with my people who are just now, they're new to all of this, and they're totally taken aback at first. And there's other things going on, but the glyphs are weekly, every few days. You know, they had a bone stuck in the ground at this gifting area. They had a raccoon hand and part of the arm, just the bone laying there. This was just 2-3 days ago. So they're still trying to grasp that this is actually happening. Their son has seen these Sasquatch beings coming to his window, and they have the typical hand slaps and grunts and sing song and gibberish and chatter and all that stuff going on. But the glyphs, that kind of has died down. The glyphs seem to be the main method of communication. And I told him what you told me here about a week or 10 days ago. I said it's subjective. It's what it means to you, and you don't try to over interpret it. Just look at it and let something come to you. And so that's why I was asking, because I thought there had to be, didn't have to be, but there some basic generic, like an alphabet of things that those that are experiencing the glyphs more often than people like myself would have an understanding. Well, the circle with a line through it means X. That's why I was asking, because I'm trying to give them something to grab onto. But
well, you know what? I can't say definitively that there isn't a across the board meaning for them, but that's not the way it works with me.
Yeah, no, I get it. And, and I'm not getting any glyphs of any kind at my level of, communication with them. I'm getting more mind speak and visual things. I'm not getting things out in the yard and stuff of that nature, at least not that I've noticed.
And not only does it work that way with me, they've proven that that's how it is, because they've shown me like these 2 examples. There are countless examples that that's how it is with us. So
yeah, so cool. It's just so fascinating,
And I think that if anybody wants to communicate with them in that way, I think that's the way to go about it. because then it's a personal communication between the two of you.
Mhm. Yeah.
I mean, I leave complex messages out for them with a bunch, 5 or 6 different symbols or more put together into form a sentence so, you know, I'm talking to them through their language, and they'll switch it. I'll go back and I'll switch it. You know, back and forth, and it's quite wonderful, really.
Yeah.
Hey, Chris, how you doing?
Good, thank you. I'm sorry I'm late. I didn't even know about this meeting. Otherwise, I would have joined earlier. But yeah, I haven't. There's only one time when I could say that I saw a glyph that, you know, just wasn't a random association of twigs. But other than that, it's all psychic. You know, either mind speak or dreams, or I mean, I feel their presence all the time. I mean, they're just like all around you. So.
Absolutely. So tell us a little bit about yourself and some of your experiences.
Sounds
Well,
good.
and it started, 2016 was when everything started. Actually, it started before that, but I was too dumb to understand it. I've had lots of experiences. I don't know where to start. Probably 2016 in March, I was walking down. I'm right up next to a state forest, and so I go on the trails a lot. And I heard these 3 tree knocks, you know, and I said, gee, because I had never even thought that Sasquatch right here. I'm in New Hampshire, so. And
No Sasquatch in New Hampshire, that's for sure.
yeah, they told me that too.
So the internet service there is terrible. So they're just moving on.
Yeah, the internet's pretty bad here. So I said, gee, that sounds like, you know, what I hear about Sasquatch. So I said, you know, well, and so I walked another 100 feet, another 3 tree knocks, you know, right ahead of me in the middle of the forest. So, and then I started saying, you know, what is this? But then nothing happened after that. A month later, it was really foggy. It was 10 at night. I'm in the house with my wife and my son, and this rock hits the side of the house, right? Pretty good sized rock. It made a really loud noise. So my son and I immediately opened the door and looked out, and you couldn't see 20 feet in the fog. So whoever it was standing in the fog throwing rocks at the house, and they knew where they could see the house, but I couldn't see them, you know. And then a month after that, it was the first one day. We have a river near here. I was driving by the river middle of the day, and there was a Sasquatch right in the middle of the river. And so
Fully materialized?
yeah,
Wow.
he had long hair, about 6 to 8 inches long. I estimated about 8 feet tall, and it was reddish brown hair. But I was driving too fast, you know, and it didn't register. I said, "What the heck was that?" You know, because I wasn't thinking Sasquatch. And so I drove for about a mile, and I suddenly realized that was a Sasquatch. You know, I mean, we have lots of bears, but they don't have long hair, and aren't that color, you know, and they aren't 8 feet. Well, they're pretty big, but they can stand up to 7 feet tall, but not like this, you know.
Not in the middle of the river.
Not in the middle of the river, right? And that time of year, from April 1st to June 1st, the state stocks that river with fish. So I suspect he was just fishing, you know. But you know, they say, I know, Brian, where are you? You're in the Pacific Northwest somewhere?
I'm in British Columbia, yeah.
British Columbia. And I heard that the Native Americans say that you can't see them unless they let you see them. Is that right?
I think I think generally, as a rule of thumb, if they won't show themselves unless they want you to see them.
Right.
But I'm not going to say that you never see them. I mean, there could be a chance encounter, but generally, that's why you know, like some of these investigators who are out hunting them, trying to get the money shot, and have got like all these agendas and whatever that they're not going to entertain, or they're not interested in.
Yeah.
You got to connect with them through the heart.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
I know.
that's why. Sorry, let me just finish my point.
No,
That's why they don't, that's why they don't really, when you see them talking at conventions and stuff, their story never changes. And they say, oh, I saw a footprint, we measured it, and it was, it had dermal ridges. That's all they get.
Yep.
Because the Sasquatch are not interested in connecting with
Well,
them.
in fact, I can tell you for sure that the Sasquatch here do not like being researched.
No, they don't.
It's like they
What-
will
who
stay
would?
away from, huh?
Who would?
Yeah, right. And they've said repeatedly that, they want to be considered equals. And they want to share the earth together with us.
Now, how did you find that out? Did they mind speak to you?
Yeah, that particular sentence, there's a medical doctor from Boston, and he some years ago just all of a sudden came psychically in touch with the Sasquatch, and we got in touch with him, and we invited him out. There's a friend and I who both can strongly feel their presence, and we invited him out, and he can just talk to them. I mean, he just carry on a conversation. We ask questions through him, and he got the answers. But I get mind speak sometimes, and I get intuition, and I've had numerous what do you call it, lucid dreams with him, conscious dreams.
Right.
That's usually how I get, and I've had a whole bunch of those. And but they tell me things like, how I asked them how many are in this town, and they said 16. And I know for a fact that they're like a family group, and they have a woman as the leader. She's a very, very powerful lady. Boy, whew. And
Oh, we got a smile out of Lee on that.
well, she's the leader, and I mean, I can tell you, the encounter I had, boy, it's amazing. But no, they're very psychically powerful, and they've told us things like they want to start classes where they want to teach us healing.
Absolutely.
And they want to teach us about the forest and about nature, what they know. But we're on hold until they tell us it's okay. And we said, well, will you materialize physically for us? And they said, yes, when the time is right.
Yep.
And we're just hoping that we'll still be alive when the time is right,
Amazing stuff, man. Yeah, they're definitely teachers. Like,
I've been healed by them several times. So
Whoa, tell us that.
me too. Yeah, let's hear.
yeah, so I was out visiting my brother, and I went to his daughter's wedding out in Seattle. This was 3 years ago, and I went on a bike ride. We went up to Snoqualmie Pass. It was a 10-mile bike ride, and I have a bad right knee. It kept me out of the Vietnam War, which was good, but it was swelled right up. And usually in the past, when it swells up, it goes down after a couple of days. And this time it didn't go down. And a month later, I'm back home and it's still swelled up. And I couldn't even sit properly for meditation. I meditate a lot out down by a pond down here. And I didn't know what to do. So I was just thinking, I was thinking in my mind, I asked the Sasquatch, is there anything you can do to help me with my knee? That night, I had a dream fragment. And in the dream fragment, I'm lying on my back. And I look to the left, and there's 4 big, bare, hairy feet and legs standing there. And that's all I got. I woke up in the morning, the swelling was completely gone, and it hasn't swelled since.
Wow. Wow.
My partner George has actually had a run-in with that family group. That's Tiger Mountain, which is just the east side of that ridge. No real big story to it, but I'm just saying I know the area and I'm familiar with that family group.
Oh, you know, Chris?
No, not him per se. I'm just saying the Sasquatch family that healed him. My partner George has had encounters with them as well.
You sure it's the same family group?
Yeah, they cover, they cover quite a large area. Washington, we figure has
well, this was in Hampshire.
20 family groups that cover the entire state, and Snoqualmie area and Tiger Mountain, like I said, is just on the east side of it. I mean, they're literally next door. It's got to be the same family.
Well, yeah, but the healing happened here in New Hampshire.
Oh, I'm sorry. The way you were talking, it's not like
Yeah, no, that's
when you
where
were here in
that's where
Seattle.
my knee got injured, but I
Oh,
got
okay.
healed back here.
I got an interesting story about healing out of Colorado. And back in my 20s, I used to do a place near Colorado Springs called Rampart Range Road. It went up into Cripple Creek and up into there. And about 5 years ago, a bunch of ladies, 4 of them went there, and they were in a spot, hot spot there. And one of the ladies was very sick. She didn't even know she would make the outing. And they kept asking her once, because she says, I'm gonna die. I have a distended stomach, and the doctors don't know what's wrong with me. And they say I don't have much time. So she's really depressed. And she said, they kept asking her, well, come with us. The girls did. They said, come on out, let's do a girl outing. She's like, no, I just, I can't. I don't know how you guys are gonna take care of me. But the day before they left, she called and says, I'm gonna go with you ladies. So she goes. She's very distended in her stomach. She's not doing well. They get to the Bigfoot site, and each lady has a place where they void, where they go pee. So they have different places 4 different places where they void. And one of the ladies was out voiding in her area, the sick one. She comes back, gets into the tent, and all the ladies are asleep, and are sleeping in a 4, like a square, head to toe in a square type pattern. The lady's in the bed, everybody's sleeping, and she's looking up, and all of a sudden she hears this tapping noise. So it comes around to each lady. Came the first lady, tap, 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 walks over to the second lady, tap, 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 walks over to the third lady, does the same, tap, 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 then goes to her. And it's sitting there going tap, 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 tap. Just wouldn't quit. Tap, 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 tap. Finally, she says, you are scaring me. Would you quit doing that? And it did. Well, the next morning, they wake up, and the other 3 are outside doing something. She wakes up and she starts screaming. She comes out of the tent, so emotional. She's just like, oh my God. And she's like, they're like, what's wrong? And they're like, she goes, look at my stomach. It's gone. I can pull my pants out. She goes, what happened? Overnight, it's gone. And so anyways, when they get back, the ladies talk about everything. She gets back to her doctors and tells the doctor the story. The doctor says, if you tell me a Bigfoot healed you, I'm going to believe it, because you were in the worst shape that a person could be in. And you coming back like this and you telling me this story, that was an amazing story to him. And, these 4 ladies, and one of them was Harriet McFeely from the Braided Flags of Garrison, the one that wrote the book on on braiding flags. But she had that experience with these ladies, and the ladies don't talk about it much. But what a story that was when it was told. About healing.
Lots of healing stories. Tom has one. I had a healing story personal to me. I witnessed a healing at one of my camp outs where we all saw it going on. It was amazing. They're definitely amazing healers. And somebody was saying that they teach us some of these abilities. When you have a connection with Sasquatch, quite often you'll start getting different abilities that you didn't have that are awakened and opened up in you. I've experienced a few, and
that's right.
after
After the blue orb I saw back in 2 years ago, and it's in that movie, Alien Contact in the Rockies. Now, don't talk about that blue orb. And I thought my producer, Ron Myers, was sick. He didn't look good. He's almost 80. I'm just saying 76 now, something like that. But he wasn't doing good. And to me, the blue orb was a healing orb. I asked the orb to go heal him. I tell you what, not too much longer, months after that, he called me up like he was just doing jumping jacks. He felt so much better. I want to think that the healing orb that I saw, I think it's a healing orb. I called it to him. And I guess, like you said, it took a long time but I thought that was a healing orb. That was a pleasure. That was beautiful. It was the blue. It was just something to me that wasn't demonic and it's scary. It was just like, it was, to me, it was a healing orb, and it was going to help Aura. So I sent that aura that way to Ron, and I felt like, and I still say this day that I helped Ron get better by sending a healing orb to him.
Absolutely.
Great story. I have a couple, maybe a question for the round table, and it was Chris that made me think about this. Brian and I've been doing this for this is the middle of the third year or third year.
Third.
Yeah, and one of the themes that I saw was the people who have the most interaction with Sasquatch have some kind of a spiritual thing going on in their life. Like I do meditation, and Chris was just talking about doing meditation, and who is it? Barry Webster. He goes out. His research, his whole entire research, is him going out, parking on the side of the road with his crew. Sometimes it's 3 or 4 people. Sometimes it's much larger, and he just does the prayers for the Sasquatch people. And he does that day after, and he'll go to 3 different places in a night, 3 different locations. That's all he's done. That's all he's done for like 10 years. And he's had 300 sightings with witnesses. So that's just a simple spiritual practice. And other people that we've met who have like a really strong prayer game. There's another guy who sees 20 Sasquatch in a night whenever he goes out. And his whole thing is gratitude and happiness and prayers for them. So there's this whole spiritual side to it. So I wonder if you guys and girls could talk about any of your spiritual practices that you do or have done, or spiritual awakenings that have just sort of added to your.
I'll start that with Barry. I went out there with Igor and I brought Igor down to Macy just to meet Barry and get to see what Barry does. We went over to the graveyard, the kids' graveyard, and Chatunga apparently is the big guy down there. Barry went running after him. We were all sitting around, and all of a sudden Barry just takes off. I was like, "What are you doing?" He said he ran after Chatunga, whatever. When Barry came back, he's very respectful in that area. He doesn't want you taking pictures. He doesn't want you being disrespectful. Well, Igor, my buddy, I'm just saying, Igor, wouldn't listen to him. And Don Monroe wouldn't listen to him. They kept taking pictures and walking around being disrespectful. That hit me so hard that I went into emotional tears, because it struck me so hard that what is going on? These guys are seasonal people. They're not listening. I got immense respect for them, but right now I don't. Barry is so emotional, and he draws the Christianity into this. And it hit me hard. I saw another side of Barry because I'm from Nebraska. I've heard that Barry does these things, but I'm hearing that he stages things. It's just, this and that. And I'm thinking, well, I'm going to go down and see myself, kind of. Boy, I tell you, I didn't see any of that. Man, that night out there on my thermal, I got some little ones running around. They were owling at me. Just what an area that Barry has down there in Macy on the Omaha Indian Reservation. And boy, does he really have a lot of respect. And you go down there, and if you're any type of what they don't want you to do, then you're out of there. Now, guys, I went down there, and I'll say it now. I don't know if I'm supposed to, but we're showing a picture of I better not say much. I think they're still working on someone to help them bring out the story. But it was interesting.
You're talking about the bones. It's probably better not to don't talk about that.
We do know. I don't want to step on nobody's toes.
Don't talk about that. Let Barry figure that one out.
Yeah, I was the first one to see the picture, and it was intense. But anyways, very, very emotional down there. And he's a good guy. Good guy.
Anybody else want to confess your spiritual state of being?
Well, I do something called Sahaj Yoga. It's mostly meditation, and there's a series of lessons, and I've been doing it since 1971.
Wow.
And
Wow.
Did you have a teacher?
yeah, I had a teacher. His name was Sri Anandamurti in India, but he died in 1990. But I still do it. And one interesting thing was like I say, I have this little spot on the lake. It's small lake or big pond. I don't know what you call it. And so they communicate with me sometimes with a pile of rocks. I wish I could present the pictures of them, but they're on my hard drive and it's not hooked up. So at first I've this little pile of rocks up right next to my door of my shop. I work out of my barn here. And they had collected, my wife had cleaned out part of the attic, and in it was some plastic flowers and butterflies, and she had taken most of the dump, but spilled some, I guess, in the lawn. And one of the Sasquatch had picked them all up and put the butterfly, a little plastic butterfly, in this pile of rocks. And it was a nice little pile. And then literally the day after that, I went down to meditate in the pond, and right next to where I meditate was this little pile of rocks. So I immediately knew that they were letting me know that they were following, they were watching me, and soon after that, I knew that they liked crystals. So a friend of mine built a house down the road, and he ran into a band of quartz, and there was a lot of little pieces of quartz, so I put in a little plastic bag. I kind of feel that the one who was putting these piles of rocks was a young girl. That's just my intuition. I didn't see her, but I just thought she was doing that. And so I left out this little bag of quartz. This was like in November, right on my deck out here. And then the snow came, and it was covered with snow until April. And then the snow melted. And then one morning the bag was gone, and instead was a little pile of rocks. Right. So I just thought that was interesting. But no, as far as spiritual, so I'm well aware that they're aware that I meditate because they watch me. And they've actually, along with this guy Art and my other friend, they've actually invited us to come meditate with them.
Oh.
And we had this really amazing experience where they have a place near here, which I won't tell anybody, but they call it their temple. Wow, the vibration there is so strong. It's unbelievable. And
yeah, when you meditate in one spot, you just fill up the whole spot with chi.
Yeah.
You can feel it.
In fact, if you use a tricorder meter, it registers, you can see the place where you meditate. But anyway, that's another subject. So we went out there, and they through Art, they told us, okay, now we want you to do deep meditation for a while. So we did deep meditation for about 10 minutes. Then they had us stand up, and then they had us go like this towards the sky. And then they said, now we want you to imagine that you're a tree, and to feel the tree, feel that you are a tree. And I literally felt like I was a tree. It was just a really amazing experience. And then they said they would do a group healing. We could not see them, but we felt like there was a whole bunch around us, standing around us, doing a group healing. We had to hold their hands. Brian, I started listening to this site because of your experience with love with them, right?
The love's that.
Yeah, and I just want to tell you what I experienced. I mean, I did experience with my guru really intense love, okay, but that's separate. But so I asked them, can I have a teacher, right? And almost immediately I had this lucid dream, and I'm in this cabin, looked like a lake, in New Hampshire or Ontario or something. And I'm coming out of the cabin, and this tall Sasquatch comes walking out of the woods. Doesn't say anything, but he's just projecting love. I mean, just unbelievable. And I just know we walk together to the side of the lake, and we just sit down and we just watch the lake. No words, just love. That's all there is.
Yep.
And then that was the end of that dream. About a week later, I'm lying in bed and I wake up around 3 a.m, just surrounded by love. I mean, it was just like you could cut it with a knife, right? It was really intense. And I knew that guy was like right outside my window.
Yeah.
But I didn't feel the need. I didn't have to go out to see him. He was just letting me know he was there. And I feel his presence, like he's always making comments on mostly my emotions. Like he said, he's always telling me, this is the thing he tells me most. He said, there are no insignificant actions. Every action, no matter how small, is significant.
No.
And every action, no matter how small, you must surrender to God. That's what he tells me.
You must surrender to God.
Yeah, surrender that action, the results of the action. In other words, you don't own the results, right?
Right.
That's pretty deep.
Yeah. Yeah, this guy's, and he's always upbraiding me if I get angry, if I make a mistake in my shop, my machine shop or something. He says, telling you to calm down, don't basically control your emotions. Don't let them go off the handle.
Control you. Yeah.
Right. And then the most
Wow.
recent thing was, I asked them through art, I said, is there any way you can teach us to see you in your subtle form? And their answer was, they don't know if they could actually teach us how to do that because they're born able to do that. But the interesting thing was that night, I had a lucid dream. And in the lucid dream, there was 2 Sasquatch going with their hands on my head like this, one over here and one set over here. And the next morning, do you know about chakras?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You do. And Agnya chakra? It's the third eye.
Yep.
In the morning, it was buzzing. It was like,
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
and I know they did that.
Yeah.
And so I had never felt it buzz like that before. And I feel that they're telling me that's what I have to focus on in order to learn to see them in their subtle form.
Wow.
Good. And that's interesting because initially when I started feeling them, I knew they were around. Everything evolves over time. Everything seems to change.
Yeah.
Some of the stuff you experience early on, it doesn't necessarily continue. I'm not saying you lose any of the abilities or any of the knowledge or knowing whatever, but it just evolves to a different form or whatever. But when I first started interacting with them, I would get this third eye feeling, really strong third eye feeling, and inevitably something would happen. They'd whoop, or they'd hoot, or they'd throw a little rock out on the path, or they'd let me know they were around in some way. So that's interesting you said that.
Yeah. So that's a work in progress. I'll let you know if anything comes of it. But
Yeah, personally, for Bean's question, I don't. I just never been able to meditate. I just can't do it.
There's a lot more. There's a lot more to spiritual that there's like near-death experiences and spiritually transformative experiences. There's a lot more than just meditation or prayer. So,
But I will say, when you raise your vibration, you kind of meet them because they're on a higher vibration than us. When you're talking good stuff, or you're thinking good thoughts, or you're having ceremony, rock ring ceremony, or not focusing on the stuff of all the problems of the world today, and you can meet them somewhere in the middle or whatever, that's when you will connect with them. Like, for instance, if I'm having a camp out and we're all talking about the fear-based stuff that's going on in the world today or whatever, you're not going to hear a peep out of them. As soon as you start raising your vibrations and talk about them, spirituality, love, that kind of magic, that kind of stuff, that's when they come around. So
yeah, well, we had my friend Dennis and I had the experience. We were driving right by near where their temple is, and we were having the thoughts of, the world's in bad shape and all this stuff, and all of a sudden they said to us, don't talk about negative stuff.
Yeah, negative.
They only- yeah, they just told us outright, don't think like that.
Well, because one of their core lessons is, all their core lessons are the foundation of it is love.
Yeah.
And there's no fear and there's no judgment and no division and all that. That's the core lessons that they've taught me. So as soon as you go to that negative stuff, you're automatically going into judgment, into fear, and all these things that take us away from who we truly are, right?
And you're also projecting negativity into the world.
Right. Well, they gave me a vision one time, because they give me, like, when they're giving downloads, sometimes I'll get these kind of like these big vast thoughts or whatever, and I'm driving down and I see this spider's web, and it's about the connection, and it represented the universe. And any thought or action that any of us do has a vibratory effect on one little strand or whatever. Well, it affects everything, so literally do affect everything with our thoughts, our actions, stuff like that. So that was a perfect example of that. So, when they say be careful with, the old adage, be careful with your thoughts and
Right.
whatever, it's very, very true.
You manifest it,
Right.
good or bad,
Right.
positive, negative. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, I wanted to say hi to Chris because I've never said hi to Chris before. So hi, my name's Graham.
Yeah.
And I just noticed you were saying something about how the Sasquatch were teaching you that no act is too mundane or too simple. These mundane and simple acts can bring us to a greater state of whatever it might be, consciousness or spirituality. Yeah. And I have a book that has psychic quotes from Sasquatch in it. And one of the quotes goes like this: mundane tasks lead to wondrous things. And interestingly, that's from the same Sasquatch that I quoted earlier before you were here at the show. I was quoting a Sasquatch named Kantuk, who I came into contact with in BC. And this one's from Kantuk as well. Mundane tasks lead to wondrous things. And there's a lot of quotes I find that they're talking about mundane tasks and how they are essential to a greater spirituality, like you're saying.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So it's some corroboration there. Corroboration.
Yeah, that's
That's the beautiful thing of having, when we're discussing amongst people like ourselves that are open-minded and kind of connected into source and whatever, there's all the collaboration that goes on, like, constantly.
Or corroboration.
I think there's more to this spirituality thing, because there's, let me explain, as people who take care of animals or people who take care of other people, that's a pretty high spiritual kind of a thing. Then there's another thing that adds to a spiritual depth in a person, and that is if you've had a really hard knock life and you're basically a broken person, but then somewhere along your life you kind of started pulling it together. Your heart is open, and yet you become more whole, and that's like a spiritual openness too. And I've seen that. That's kind of like an unspoken about thread of people who've actually really had a hard time, and then they come out of it, and then the Sasquatch can resonate with them because they're, that broken heart actually opened them.
Beans, you said you had another thought. So you were going to ask us a couple of questions. What was the other thing to comment on, or do you remember?
I had an experience. Well, let me tell you the latest thing that I've sort of gotten from the Sasquatch people is I watch this guy, Steve Dahl, over at How to Hunt, and he's getting millions of views, and he's just a sincere guy and doing his thing. But whenever I watch videos of a good video of somebody, telling their story, I can connect to the Sasquatch watching through me. And and I've been doing this for years, watching having the Sasquatch watch through me. And I sort of got the message that there's this whole thing that we used to joke around about the team Inside Out, and the Sasquatch are on the team Inside Out. The ETs are on the team Inside Out. The all the healers and all the people who are doing transformational work and the meditators, they're all on the team Inside Out. They're wounding happens from the outside in, and healing happens from the inside out. And what's one of the things that the ETs and the Sasquatch are doing are helping humans. So when I was watching this guy on how to hunt, I just said, I wonder how many Sasquatch are connecting to how many people as we're watching this. And what I got was there's around 1,000 Sasquatch that are monitoring around 4 million humans. And I thought that was just profound. In other words, it's all the people who are watching Sasquatch or watching about the ETs or watching, they're trying to figure out what it's all going on, and they're having an awakening, or they're excited about, all this kind of stuff. They're being watched. They're being poked by the star people and by the Sasquatch people. So there was something really comforting about that. That's the kind of level that some of the Sasquatch are on, where they can monitor thousands of people at one time and watch videos and watch their life through their own eyes and be connected to them on that deep of a level.
Yeah.
Mind-boggling. That's 4,000 humans per Sasquatch.
Well, you're good at math.
Yeah, thanks to this. Yeah, but anyway, I thought about that. I'm just going but if you're just connecting spiritually, psychically, that's all around. That's not that massive of a number in the scheme of things in their world, because they seem to do it effortlessly. It's not that big a deal to them. It's just something they do.
And the ETs are doing the same thing. That's what I'm saying about this thing in Team Inside Out. When these spaceships are flying around, they're not just flying around. They've been beaming energy down onto the earth for a long time, of like awakening energy and uplifting energy. And they do it real slow. Like Chris could back you up that when you go see a guru, the whole idea of seeing a guru is just to sit around his energy. And over years, the connection to him will slowly raise your energy up. It's a very organic, very slow, much slower than any meditator wants. They want to get a little candy right away. But it's slow. It brings your energy up really slow. And the ETs do that, and the Sasquatch do that. They don't work on a timeline of like a year. To talk about maybe they're going to teach or start a teaching, like he was saying, that might be a 40-year deal for them. 40 years of them putting it together, waiting for the time to evolve, waiting for the energy to be at the right level. You know what I mean? It may not be a 6-month kind of a deal like we think of. Yeah. Time is not the same for them.
No. Yeah, it's funny. I've had things happen where that were, like a knowing or a story brought to fruition, where they had 3 or 4 different people all getting messages to meet at a certain place or meet at a certain understanding or whatever that they were working with, like simultaneously kind of thing. You know what I mean? So, yeah, I didn't describe it very well, but basically they can work with a bunch of different people just to give them one understanding that they agree upon themselves when they meet or something or something like that. And it's also interesting quite often when I'm talking about them online or on the show or whatever or stuff, you can feel them listening in.
They're listening in right now.
Well, I know that, but
yeah,
but you can, it's a definite feeling.
You can feel their presence.
Yeah, absolutely.
Every show.
Yeah, well, there's every show I think I've ever done, I've got nudged by them in some way, especially when I'm talking about stuff that they really want put out there or some truth that they want talked about. I get a big energy nudge. And usually my whole body will light up with energy.
Or if you talk about something they don't want out there.
Well, yeah, they corrected me a few times when somebody says something on the show, and they corrected me. And
Crash the internet on you if you
I don't
don't.
agree.
You know what I mean?
I'll just say I don't
Let's
agree
have
with that.
happen.
Brian, do you hear their words like clearly as words or more as feelings?
Both, but more feelings.
That's the same with me. Yeah.
And I get downloads where it just, like when I wrote my book, which I just finished, they were guiding me every word I wrote. And it was all from downloads of information that they gave me, you know, and I'm writing it very confidently, not only from my own experiences, but the conclusions I came to and what was going on in the lessons or whatever are all specified by them, right? Yeah. So what do we want to move on till next?
Well, I have to leave.
You always leave early.
Oh, it's, yeah, but 2.5 hours, not bad.
Well, make like a tree. There you go. Make like a tree. Huh?
Yeah.
Congratulations on your book, finally, Buster. When's it coming out? I mean, when is it? Is it?
What's the name of it?
It's being printed right now, so it should be out, I don't know, a couple of weeks or so, 2 or 3 weeks.
Tom put up a pre-order link for it, didn't he?
What's that?
Tom put up a pre-order link, didn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I'm putting out a deluxe version too, like hardcover, full color pictures.
Nice.
The pictures it's more compelling when you can see the pictures in color and whatever. Because a lot of my stories are enhanced by the pictures, like the ones I share with Carter there about how I came to the understanding of how they work with glyphs and whatever. When you can actually see it in pictures, it makes it much more real.
Yeah, and I did both mine in color. Now, you know, beyond the freight publishing, they sell my black and white version, but they could not price mine like I could for them to make their profit. So I sell mine out of my house, and they're both color, nice glossy paper. Just like you said, you know, to me, you can't show a vibrant, lush green tree in black and white ink on pulp paper. It just doesn't translate. You know, when you're speaking, especially in a spiritual mode like you are, you know, but, you know, some things just need to be experienced in color, you know, so.
Like your wall behind you. My
Yeah,
favorite.
you like that color, don't you, that orange?
That is my favorite color.
It is a good color. It's a Valspar color. I can't remember. They don't even make Valspar anymore. They don't carry it at the store, but I've got it and I can get it matched. It's a real cool color. We have it on the exterior of the house too in some spots. But you know, having a color in the black and white and having a delineation between the two, and people can choose, you know, financially and spiritually what speaks to them. It's a good way to do it. You know.
Well, thing is, I've never made a penny off of anything with Sasquatch. I mean, I'm going to be selling my book, but it's not about making it. It's not about making money with me. It's about having something I can be proud of, and a good quality book with color.
And spread the word.
Ask not what Sasquatch can do for you.
Yeah, I'm in the hole. I mean, I'm pretty much at a break even. But again, it's not about money. It's about spreading the word and getting more people to come forward with their experiences. So
Show your book. You got one right there. Show it. Don't be shy. Oh, there you go. Sasquatch, the Enigma of an Enigma.
And this is the first one. And these are, you know, full color, high gloss. I mean, every page is shiny, black, beautiful, you know, and
his book is bigger than yours, Brian.
My book's almost 400 pages.
Mine are 250, 245, something like that. So yours is a lot bigger.
Yeah, it's almost 400 pages.
Sizes and everything.
But when the pages are only 5 by 6, it makes it really thick.
I was going to say, Carter, you know, and I don't want to mention names, but obviously, but your friend that you had dealings with up in my way, the reason he's getting they're aggressive with him and in his face is because they're frustrated with him.
I know.
He's not getting the heart connection. He's not
We've
getting
connected. Yeah, we decided that a long time ago. I mean, he knows it. I've told him, and he goes, "Well, maybe." You know, he's a loner. He's antisocial, and I think this whole thing has come crashing down around him. I said, you're the subject. You and your dad you were chosen, and you've rejected it for whatever reason, whether you just don't get it or you know what it is, and you just don't want to deal with it because you like your life simple and boring. Yeah, but he's aware, he chooses to do nothing with it. It's very frustrating. I feel bad for him.
That's very sad because they're showing
Yeah.
profound lessons and stuff, and he's just like looking at it from fear based.
I would trade places with him in a nanosecond. I mean, it's just, he may get it, eventually, but he's 66, clock's ticking, and so he doesn't do social media. He's got a flip phone still. He's just, he's a loner, and that intrudes to his safe little world he has. That's the only way I can figure it out, because he just is rejecting it, even though he understands it. He knows that he's been assigned.
Might be a broken person. Some people are just broken, and
Yeah, he could be. Now, he's lost a marriage and 2 long-term relationships because of Sasquatch activity. His dad denied all this was going on for years and years till he passed away. And then he finally said, well, all those times I denied, he said, you saw what you saw. And, he said, I know, but it was too late. So I think he feels it's an intrusion into his safe little world of being a loner. But there's at least 3 Sasquatch that we both agree were assigned to him to try to get lessons, and he just rejected it. At the same time, he was fascinated by it, but that doesn't pertain to me as far as he's concerned. He just doesn't want to absorb it. I feel bad. It's just what an opportunity lost. It's just,
right.
gosh.
There you go.
I've had one of those lately myself.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was investigating with my wife, Amy, an habituation site, and the owners of the property were, I don't know, a little off, you might say, and that made it impossible for us to continue. But we did learn quite a bit while we were there, though. So that knowledge and those experiences will be with us for the rest of our lives. But the people that were facilitating the site, who own the property, we will not be seeing them for the rest of our lives, unfortunately.
Yeah. Well,
sometimes that's the way it goes, I guess. So.
Yeah, and he's had these experiences, and he just cannot accept them for what they are. He and I have had long chats. I've been talking to this guy for 2.5 years. We've talked. I've got 40, 50 hours of recordings, plus, painstakingly writing his stuff. He's had some bizarre stuff where he's been zapped, knocked dead, and brought back to life by the Sasquatch to show him what you could be doing and what you could be experiencing if you just listen and pay attention. Not knocking him out and killing him, but I mean, just the powers that you have to better yourself and better the world. And he's just not open to it. It's just,
it's an opportunity lost.
Yeah, it is. But I put it in a book, and of course, the book sales ground to a halt because this is so bizarre, but that's okay. It's not about sell.
Maybe it'll make them sell more later.
Well, it could be, but it's just
as people's opinions change.
Yeah, opinions and education and concepts change. So, but yeah, I feel bad, and I appreciate Brian talking to him and everything, but he's closed. There's nothing we can do.
Well, I appreciate you put that book out, and you as you described it, you're getting crickets now for sales, but who cares?
Yeah, but I don't care, and I'm broken even. So whatever else I get now, minus my gas and printing costs, and go on and on for the last 20 years.
We're still early. We're still early in this. Like I use the ET model because to me they're going lockstep, and it took them. There was like 20, 30, almost 40 years of the movies were like alien invasion and people gonna die and wars in heaven and all this kind of wars. Alien wars and monsters, and they're going to eat you and all that kind of stuff with the ETs, right? Well, none of that ever happened, and eventually people started going, well, we were on a craft, and my life is better. I got a healing, almost, 60% of people go on a craft or been contacted, they end up with a healing and they're awakening and all that kind of stuff. So that changed the whole narrative, but it took like 30, 40 years to do that. And we're in about 20 years now with Sasquatch, right?
Mhm.
And really only about 10 or 12 years of the internet connection with Sasquatch. So we got probably another 10 or 15 years before people are going to start having a completely different understanding of what the Sasquatch are and what's
Yeah.
going on.
Yeah.
There's still most people out there still calling them monsters and apes and
Yeah.
stuff.
Yep.
And how many?
80% of them are shown like this. I mean, it
Yeah.
just does not help. That's just Hollywood. I mean, that's just so insulting.
Well, does anybody read Dr. Johnson's books from, he's from Oregon now, he's in Washington. Do you
Matt
know who I'm talking
Johnson?
about?
Yeah, Matt Johnson.
Matthew Johnson.
Yeah.
And he talks about the two types of Sasquatch, totally unrelated. One that we're talking about is subtle and usually on a subtler plane. The other one is totally physical and kind of crude and not so smart. What do you think?
There's a few different varieties out there. They're all Sasquatch, though.
You think they're all the same race?
Yeah. Well, to the Sasquatch, well, they live in.
I mean, the Sasquatch I've seen are very human looking.
Yeah, well, you got what we call the ancient ones, but but the Sasquatch people live in the all one and no space, and so we are one with the Sasquatch people. So to them, they don't see a differentiation between Pugjugwees and all those kind of things. Those things that are face eaters and all that. To them, it's all the same. But yeah, the behavior is vastly different. There's in different parts of the country. In different parts of the state, there would be different aggressive levels. There's some Sasquatch tribes for sure do not want anything at all to do with humans, and they will stay away from them, and they don't come in close to town or anything like that. So there's all different stuff going on out there. That's for sure.
Yeah.
But I also think that they mirror what we believe, because we have to. It's part of our soul growth. I believe in the core truths across the board, like love, no judgment, no fear, no division, all that kind of stuff. But so many people have all these different avenues of beliefs and experiences that don't always necessarily hook up with other people's, and they're no less valid or whatever. But I think what it is they have no judgment, so they support us with whatever we think and whatever we kind of believe or whatever. And that's a fact to me. So, and that's because with no judgment, they cannot, it's about soul growth or whatever too, right? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So they can't really interfere with that. They've just got to look at it, support it impartially, because if they do, they're kind of interfering with our soul essence. So
yeah, we got to get on or stay on the track on our own.
That's why I just basically, that's why the core truths are so important to me, and why I focus on them. And they're vast, and there's so much to learn and whatever from them. But I don't go into, like I was on a council of 12, all this stuff. They don't give me that stuff because it's not important.
I've never gotten that either. In fact,
Not
we
important.
asked them, I said, well, we asked them, I said, Dr. Johnson, his group says they're called the Zanu people. And the guy we talked to, his name is Emu, and he says, well, there's some that may call him that, but we don't.
Well, I think that, and I don't want to name names, I don't want to criticize anybody, but I think there's some ego involved sometimes.
Yeah.
But they do not.
That guy's a giant ego. That guy, Matt.
Well, I'm not going to say who's got a giant ego or whatever, but I'm just saying.
I'm going to say it to him. This guy came on one of my posts on my own personal profile and gave me a bunch of religious crap bullshit. I'm not going to put up with that. That guy's. I wouldn't go to him for counseling. Let me put it that way. And in terms of his truth, he's having experiences. That's great. I hand it to him, but he's not going to say the whole world is Xanu. That's not what's going on. That's not what everybody else is experiencing.
Well, like I said, they'll support you in any belief you have because they don't want to, they can't
Right.
interfere.
I think language can be very symbolic with this telepathic communication. It comes out in a way that makes sense to the person who's receiving the message,
Right.
I wanted
or
to
else
tell
they're
you
never going to
experience,
get that message.
experience I had, which was really interesting. Maybe you can comment on this. So there's one guy I've had 4 interactions with. He introduced himself as Throg, right? And of course, I don't know if you know, down in New York City, there's a Throg's Neck Bridge. And I looked up
Oh, wow.
history of it, and they don't know where that name came from. I was wondering if if they just named it after him. But anyway, the most recent one was, it's a lucid dream, and I'm sitting on my deck here meditating, and he comes out of the woods, and he sits down. You know, him sitting down on the ground, his head's equal to mine, right? So, and he started speaking to me, but it was in a language that I have no idea what it was. I mean, it was a verbal language. I assumed it was their language, but then he would switch to a higher level communication, which was pure psychic, and I understood him. And then he would switch back to the verbal, and I didn't know what the heck he was talking about. Then it would switch back to the pure psychic, and I understood. It was like 2 levels of communication. I don't know if you've ever experienced anything like that.
Oh, definitely. There seems to be multiple levels of communication going on with this phenomena. So you might get a word or a sentence, but you also might get a vision. You see something in your mind, or a feeling, like an emotional feeling, or a sensation, meaning a physical feeling.
Yep.
All these things could be going on even at the same time. So there's no limit to the, I call it quantum communication in my book, because as there's a quantum universe with no limitations, let's say, there's also no limitations to the communication.
And questions, I
It's
gotta throw
everywhere.
that out there. They might give you a question, and so you're thinking you have a question, but the answer to that question is what they want to give you. So questions are something to look at too. When you go, why is this, or what's happening there, and how did that happen, or something like that. This is a question that you think you have, but in fact, it's an answer they want to give you.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you can only receive the answer insofar as it is something that you can understand. If it's something beyond your comprehension, you're not going to be receiving it much, or you receive something different that you can comprehend.
But
They
they
only
also,
push us so much.
there's another other kind of communication they do, which is almost to the public. They don't like, you know, it's against the law to drive motorized vehicles on the trails in the forest, right?
Mhm.
But kids do it anyway. And
Of course.
I know the SASQUATCH don't like that. And so there was one period, this was a couple of years ago, and I was walking on a trail, and these kids are driving their dirt bikes through the woods. And next time I walk on the trail, there's 2 big hemlock trees just broken right across the trail. So
Yeah.
nobody could drive a motorcycle. And I'm pretty sure they did it. You know, there was no, who else could break a
I'll stop.
hemlock and just snap it, you know? And then there's another guy in the other part of the woods. He's a trapper. He goes in all the time and he's trapping. And I know they don't like that either. And so this just happened a couple of months ago. So another 2 more hemlocks are broken right across the trail where he walks. So I thought that was it was interesting that they were making such an overt statement.
Well, again,
I have
yeah,
to
it's
go, guys.
communication.
What?
Have a good one, Carter.
I've got to go.
Where you going, Carter? You're going to
I
go
have a
sell
business
another
appointment.
home.
I have a business appointment at 3:00. So I hate to, this is very, very enlightening. This is probably one of the best ones we've had, you know, so this has been very enlightening. And
Well, it's going to get real good now that you're going.
Thanks for showing up.
and now that I'm gone, now you get some shit done.
Now we can talk about you.
Yeah, well, please
thanks
do,
for
and
showing
make sure
up
it's all
sober this
nasty.
time.
Huh? Hey, Michael, if you can send me those 25, you put that 25 commonalities of Sasquatch and Greys.
It's 40,
You post
46
46.
or 5, something like that.
If you have that somewhere, could you send me the link? I rearranged my computer and I put it in a Word document, but I
I'll
can't
post.
find it.
I'll post it on. I'll just post it on a post in
Okay,
in
okay, that's
Pork
great.
and Beans so that everybody can see it.
Okay, no,
Would you
it's
like-
it's very, very interesting, guys. It's very cool.
Would you like my 33? And there's more than that, but I just decided I'll stop. 33 commonalities between a relationship with how Sasquatch, the understanding they give you or whatever, what you come away with as far as.
Yeah. Because I want to share this with my new witnesses. I want to share some of this and get them to open their heads a little bit.
Commonalities between Sasquatch learning and NDEs.
Yeah,
I've got a list of 33.
Oh, that's
Good.
pretty cool.
do it. A
Well,
pleasure,
those-
ladies and
those-
gentlemen.
Those lists are compelling because, you know,
They are.
after about 6, your mind just melts. Goes, oh shit.
Yeah. It's like, uh-oh, I got some homework to do. I got some splaining to do, Lucy. You know. All right, enjoy the rest of your day, ladies and gentlemen.
Lucy.
Yes, take
Nice
care,
to meet you,
Carter.
Carter.
You too, Lee. We'll see you guys.
Have a good
Send
one.
me that paint pattern or whatever.
I'll send you the paint color.
Yeah.
We'll trade. All right, guys. Peace out.
Bye.
I'll just jump in here real quick. This is just a fascinating conversation. It's my kind of, I mean, I'm never been a meditator, but I'm a spiritual person, and I sort of walk around in a spiritual awareness of, you know, what's going on around me, what's going on in my mind, what am I feeling, all these different things. And I've learned a lot about how Sasquatch communicates, and I'm wondering if they're not more present than I think they are. So it's been really amazing. And the thing I love about Sasquatch is everybody creates their own reality around them. And I think that's where the world is going. We just have to figure out how to all live here together in our own reality. So it's just a really, really cool topic, I think. And kind of funny how I ended up here this morning. I mean, I got a little nudge to look at my Facebook chat. I never look, I'm not on social media very much. And here I opened it up and Brian says, why don't you stop by my show? And I'm thinking, I can watch a show. I didn't know you were inviting me to be on the show.
Yeah. Well, no coincidences.
Yeah.
There
It's,
is no
yeah.
coincidence. So you said that they're with us more than you thought they were. So tell us about that. Maybe we can talk about that. How did you think they were, and what are you starting to realize?
Well, I realize that I'm a listener. You know, I want to hear what other people have to say. I don't necessarily, I'm introverted, so I don't necessarily speak out, but maybe I need to start talking to them more. Maybe they're there waiting for me to speak up and say something. I mean, I'm getting all these nudges. I'm getting all these downloads. Maybe I need to start asking more questions.
Yeah. And if you want to meet them, all you have to do is to say, hey, I'm Lee. I'm open to meeting you. You've obviously got your heart in the right place.
Right.
We can all see that from talking to you. You
And
just
don't have to
walk.
go in the woods either. You can do it right in your own home because
Yeah.
I never go in the woods, and you know, except for just to walk in the park or something. So
Yeah.
it's an inside job.
You don't have to, but I kind of like the idea of initially going into the woods, but you don't have to. Like they connect with you probably more at home.
If I was in the world's greatest, most beautiful rainforest, and it was like, you know, 5 minutes away from my house, I would go there. But you know,
Yeah.
in Savannah, Georgia, which is Savannah means Savannah.
Yeah, Beans is right. I mean, you can just do it from anywhere and just say, I'm open to meeting you. But it's kind of nice being in the woods and being out in
Their
nature.
apartment.
There's a special connection just when you're out there.
In
Yeah.
their living room. Yeah.
What's that, Ken?
When you're in their living room. Yeah.
Yeah, but
Connection.
Beans is also right. But yeah, I mean, they listen into the people that they want, that they're connecting with, like, and they're monitoring everything. Like Chris says, they're listening in right now.
Yeah, they're all
Yeah,
huddled in.
that's amazing.
You said you got on the show kind of by accident, right? Isn't that what you said?
Yeah, sort of felt like it. Yeah.
Yeah, well, what was it? What was the Graham said? Small things what was that quote?
Mundane tasks lead to wondrous things.
There you go, living proof.
Yeah, just open your Facebook page once in a while.
There you go.
So
How
when
more
you gonna,
mundane can you get than that?
when you gonna
Yeah.
start writing your Sasquatch book?
I'm working on it.
Well, I will offer you, or I'm sure anybody here would offer you any advice or any stories or anything that you reach out and we can share.
Yeah, we will
Yeah, yeah.
talk for sure.
Right on.
Where is everybody located? I don't even know. Let's see. Brian is in British Columbia. You're in Beans. You're in Savannah, Georgia.
Savannah, Georgia,
Wow.
East Coast.
In the city or in the
hold on.
country?
Oh, I'm in Chatham County, which is a city, more or less. It's a pretty town because they got huge amounts of trees here, all those big old southern oaks. That's a pretty place.
So what's up with the Southern Bells? Are they still around?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Nice.
Ken, where are you?
Out of actually Colorado, Estes Park.
Estes Park. Oh.
I did 18 years of research up in the Rocky Mountains near Estes. And then I do have a house in Nebraska, and that's where I'm at now. I'm in Blue Hill, a little town outside of Hastings, about 20 miles. And I have a house there. And my wife's a traveling nurse, so she kind of keeps this house as a point for her to come back to. But yeah, most of my research is Colorado and maybe 2 to 3 years now in Nebraska doing some. And I like your earlier, it's about the education of the things we do, and it's not about the glorification of the things we do. I like Brian's comment on you get these speakers up there at the podium, and I want to talk about their egos and what they've done. And I always said to myself, it's not about the glorification. It's about the education. And people are like, well, you do movies and it's like documentaries. Well, that's education. We're trying to show we don't have a scripted cast. We go off of we go off of genuinely feelings, and the shot is made, and it's not made up. It's not told to us. The scenes that we do in my movies, our movies that I do, are genuinely about the person. That's what we want. We want the education of the person, not the glorification of the person. So,
Well, like Carter, for instance, he used to be associated with the BFRO, and I guess he still is in some way, but he's not on board with them. And I just got to ask, what are these guys doing? What in the hell are they trying to accomplish? Because they've got people come up to them with stories, and they talk about all the stuff we're talking about, the supernatural stuff, shaping all this stuff, and they edit all of that stuff out and then never bring it to light. So what are you doing?
Well,
what the hell are you investigating? You're ignoring
But
the whole.
the Sasquatch don't like their attitude.
Well, of course not.
Yeah. And
Because the
I'll
Sasquatch.
just give you one story that the first thing I did was call the BFRO, and they came out here and we had a nighttime walk through the forest. There was like 3 BFRO guys, a psychic lady, and some other guy, I can't remember. Anyway, so we went out into the middle of the forest. There's a big open marsh, and they did their Sasquatch calls, which I think is just so totally stupid that I can't imagine, can't even express.
Yeah, those are good ones. Eh?
Yeah, I
what do
did
you
them
think-
for
what
about
do you
6
think
months.
you're suddenly going to let them know you're here? It's like,
Yeah,
and
ridiculous.
so anyway, so the 3 BFRO guys stayed there, and the other 3 of us started walking back towards the parking lot. And they took like 15, 20 minutes to get back. And when they finally came, we said, well, what happened? They said, whoa, you wouldn't believe it. Somebody threw this huge rock and it crashed through the trees and it made this loud noise like 10 feet from us. And I said, well, they didn't do that to us. They only did it to the BFRO guys.
Yeah.
And I think that was an expression on their part of what they think of BFRO.
Yeah, really.
Well, the Sasquatch are here to open people's heart, teach them about the core truths and whatever, and like love, no judgment, no fear, no division, all the things that keep us in that state of
Deception.
yeah, all the things that keep us in this dumbed down state where we're easy
Yeah.
to control. That's all they're interested in. And so, they told me a long time ago, you represent us everywhere you go. That's not an ego thing. That's an honor.
Yeah.
That's an honor thing. I was in tears when, hearing that. And so if I'm going to go out and start talking about them and leave stuff out because I have an ego or people won't believe me or I might look like an idiot or something, sorry, I'm going to tell it exactly as it is because it's a responsibility to speak the truth about them because the things that these guys leave out is where all the real learning is.
Yeah.
There's no learning in, like they got an 18-inch track and a 6-foot stride and, they took a dump in the woods and there's nothing, that's stupid.
I can answer that
They're
question about
teachers.
what happened. I can answer that question. There's a new science kind of thing that happened. They've been studying this Neanderthal content in humans, and they look back at the Neanderthal thing, right? And they think that the Neanderthals were absorbed into human beings, right? So then you have Neanderthals and Denisovans and all that kind of stuff. What they found out was that the Neanderthals actually became a branch of human beings. And they're going to call that branch no-not-at-alls.
What?
A joke?
No-not-at-alls.
No, not at all. Wow. That's
a joke.
insane.
I know.
Yeah, I didn't get it. I've heard a couple of your jokes and I could, whatever.
The BFROs, they don't know at all. They don't know. They're no-not-at-alls.
They know not at all.
Oh, okay. Now I get it in relation to, yeah.
Well, I'll tell you one more story. The same BFRO guy told me, and I won't mention his name. But this is
You
what
don't
he
want to
told me.
mention names.
Huh?
That's judgment and that's putting bad energy
Yeah.
on. I don't like mentioning names, but
Anyway, they in a forest somewhere in southern New Hampshire. They went out like in November around midnight, and it was heavy rain, cold, and they went out in the middle of this woods. They went about a mile into the woods, and all of a sudden, he said they were surrounded by six Sasquatch, all with red eyes, and they were all growling, and they all stood around them. And then one of them motioned and led them back to their parking lot and kind of made them go away.
Oh, wow.
So
Escorted out.
yeah, and so they can show not aggression, but I would say dislike, or they want to show that they're not happy with what's being done.
well, one of the first things I was taught, and I think I had this natural anyway, is that you have to respect them, number one.
Right.
And they're not being respected when they're with the
Research.
things these people do. They're putting cameras in their face. They're trying to trick them into being filmed. They're not respecting them as equals or anything. They're just treating them as monsters, right? So they're not adhering to the protocols of respect. So there's many different reasons why they're not going to get anywhere, but that's one key one, right?
I don't even think they like us going out and feeding them. And that's sort of a demeaning thing. It's sort of like saying, well, we don't think you're capable of finding food on your own, even though you've done it for millions of years. So therefore, we're going to give you some food. Several years ago, I left a thing of peanut butter out on a stand, and they've never taken it. And I asked them through this doctor, I said, do you want us to bring you food? And they said, well, you can bring food if you want to. I said, well, that's not very, essentially they were being nice and say, well, we don't really need your food, but do you ever feed them?
Have I ever? I used to have some gifting areas in the early days And I actually had some funny results. I think a lot of the stuff they took was more for lessons.
Yes,
Lesson,
I would agree.
like,
Yeah.
for instance, I'd put 2 apples in a bag, tie it up into a tree. I go back and I see that the bag was still tied up, but something told me to open it up. So I looked inside and one of the apples had a huge bite out of it. So then I took the apple, put it like 50 yards away, came back, the bag is still tied up, opened the bag and the half-eaten apples back in the bag, that kind of stuff, you know, but that was showing me about their abilities and stuff.
Yeah.
And, you know, they've taken peanut butter and stuff and completely cleaned the jar like there was nothing even in it. But yeah, I agree with you. They don't, I don't give them food or whatever anymore. It's not necessary.
Right.
Oh, although I will tell you a story, and I wonder if I can find the picture. I can probably just describe it. I don't think you have to see the picture. You'll be able to visualize it. But my wife and I, for American Thanksgiving, I'm in Canada, so she came up here and she made a big turkey dinner. And we put it in a great big huge freezer bag, and I left it for them. Because my wife, you know, but see, there's a difference. This was given to her from her heart. So it was a heart-based gift of love and whatever, because, you know, we love the guys up here, or the Sasquatch people in general, but especially the ones we're connected to. So we left them a great big huge bag of turkey. And the next day I'm walking around in the woods with her, and I got this message that they had either taken it was a feeling, it wasn't word, that they had either taken the turkey or they acknowledged the gift. I knew that it was one of the two. And so we went back to where we had left it, and right on the ground, the turkey was gone. There was no sign of it, you know, it wasn't an animal, they took it. And right on the ground, right in front of where we left it, were like fern fawn bouquets, 2 of them, tied at the bottom with about 6 fawns or something in each, and it just looked like a floral arrangement, a gift for her and I. A thank you.
Wow.
So I mean, it depends on your intention and your heart.
Right.
And Brian, that's so true. I was in Kentucky. I do a 4-year investigation down there when my wife goes down her family reunion in Buckhorn State Park down in Kentucky. And most of the time when we gift, we want to come back and have something back, don't we? We want to have something. But this particular time, I just said to myself, I bought a payday bar and said they're hungry. And that was out of, I wanted just to make sure they got fed. It wasn't in my thoughts, you got to give me something back now. It was just that thought of loving. And here, guys, here's a candy bar for you. Well, when I come back, I did get this beautiful gift in the area where I put the candy bar. But I thought to myself then, you know, your thought that night was just, here, guys, you're hungry. Here's candy bar. Your thought that night wasn't, here, guys, here's candy bar, and I want something back. It wasn't that. It was, I want to give you guys something out of love, and you're hungry. So that kind of changed me about gifting myself. Because you know,
they're not averse to taking fruit out of my orchard, but I mean, somebody, I can't really say they did. I don't know, but somebody did. You know, my pear tree, this was like five years ago, so filled with pears. You know, first time it had so filled with pears. I went out to check them at night. They're all just ready to pick, you know. So I said, I'll come back. I was thinking in my mind, I'll come back in the morning with a bucket and I'll pick them all. Came back in the morning, they were all gone. Every one of them, like 20 of them. And there weren't any, it's not like a deer or a moose, you know, will eat half of one and leave the scraps on the ground. There was nothing. They were completely gone. But I'm happy for them if they like them. Yeah.
Yeah.
You guys keep chatting. I'm trying to actually find those fern fawn pictures.
Okay. So Lee, where you live?
I live up near Seattle, just west of Seattle.
Oh.
But I'm actually, right now, I'm in the Blue Mountains
Where are the Blue Mountains?
in Northeast Oregon,
Northeast Oregon.
not far from
That's
Tollgate,
Mount-
actually.
Is that Mount Hood?
No, that's in Eastern Oregon or Western Oregon.
Okay, so you're in the desert area or the arid area.
I'm up in the mountains, so
Oh.
it's foresty here.
Oh, okay. And Graham, I
My
don't
home
know.
away from home.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm in Perth, Ontario, Canada.
Oh, you're in Ontario. Okay.
Yeah. And the picture behind me was taken in Missouri. And I had my first experiences in Missouri and Arkansas. So I'm kind of an Ozarks guy, but I'm from Canada.
Black Ozark.
You're from Canada or living in Canada?
From Canada. I just was visiting the Ozarks, and that's sort of how all this started for me. Is some wild places in the Ozarks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Definitely not the final frontier, but one of the unsung frontiers of the United States, I think, is the Ozark States.
Yep.
There's so much going on there.
Pretty amazing place. I've been there. Yeah.
Yeah.
So here's those fern fawns I told you about. One
Oh,
for my
yeah,
wife,
look at
one for
that.
me.
That's
They're
beautiful.
They're tied at the bottom, and yeah. So, yeah, I agree with Chris. I don't think they need food or whatever, but if you give from your heart and it's genuine and whatever,
Yeah.
they're going to, they may respond with a heartfelt gesture too. So that's what they left for us.
That's nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the context and the intention.
Well, my life is better with Sasquatch in it, and it's better with the ET people in it too. But it's mostly better with the Sasquatch people.
Yeah.
It's a nice life, actually.
I had a friend who had, he's not alive anymore, but he had tons of experiences of being taken up to a big mothership. And he told me this story. He said, on this ship, he had 3 different guides who would take him around the ship. He couldn't go anywhere on the mothership without a guide. And one of the times he was up there, they were in this big room filled with a lot of different races just talking to each other. And he said down at the other end of the room, he was watching, and he said, he didn't call him Sasquatch. He said it looked like Chewbacca, right? He said a guy who looked just like Chewbacca came through one door, walked across the room, and walked out the other door.
Wow.
And in his mind, he was thinking, gee, this is an advanced race. Why do they have such a primitive person on the ship?
Right.
And immediately his guide turned to him and said, my friend's name was Basil. I said, Basil, those beings are the most intelligent beings on this ship.
Yeah. Did anybody want to, we're getting on to close to 3 hours now. Did anyone want to share one special story? And then I'll ask you all how your life has changed since your connection with Sasquatch. I know, Lee, you're quite early on in it, but I bet you have something to say anyway. So you want to start with Graham? Do you want to share an interesting Sasquatch story or something that's on you in your heart?
Well, yeah, there's one. Okay, damn, I'm gonna get actually probably shot by the nutrition police for this one. As for giving Sasquatch food, this was an alchemical act. Let's not say that it was a linear act or logical act, but I did have these Sasquatch sticks, which are made by that company that makes sort of beef jerky kind of treats.
Jack Links.
That's the one.
Yeah.
And they have a picture of a Sasquatch on it. Now, I never wanted them to see the picture because the picture, I think, isn't very flattering, and it's not very accurate, actually. So it's not accurate nor flattering. But I did give some of these away, and they were taken. And I think it's because I find that in those funny little beef jerky things, there is a lot of spirit put into those. There is a lot of good vibes, a little love put into those. You wouldn't think so, since it's a corporate food, I suppose. Okay, fine, it's a corporate food, but maybe they had a nice idea, and it sort of translates through the energy of those Sasquatch sticks. So I actually handed those to one of them at a point where I was just outside a a cropping of trees or a copse of trees. And I put it down on the ground about 2 feet in front of me. It was gone the next day. And I used to do this regularly and they'd always be gone. So this wasn't the only time I did that. But the really interesting thing about that experience though was there was eye shine behind the trees. And I guess there was maybe 2 or 3 individuals there. And there was one that was directly in front of me. And, you know, I was really enthusiastic, let's say, overly enthusiastic a lot of the time during this period of time that I was in Missouri. And so I tried to look directly into his eyes. No, don't do that. That is an aggressive act, according to how a Sasquatch feels. And it's not acceptable to just stare at someone in the eyes like that. So I saw the 2 points of eye shine, they kind of zipped back the other way and went away from me. And when I told a friend of mine, an indigenous friend of mine about this, he's like, wow, he saved you. I'm like, what? He saved me? What did he save me from? And he said, well, he saved you from himself, because that's a signal to attack when you stare at somebody in the eyes like that for the Sasquatch. So he said, he saved you. And I realized even at the time that, yeah, maybe I'm being a bit intrusive, or, like being too forward, staring at somebody in the eyes like that. I was just so fascinated to, be communicating with these beings who I knew that their intelligence was way beyond mine, and that they, hopefully would find me at least amusing, right? So maybe that was my way of communicating at the time, was just trying to be funny so they wouldn't get too bored of me, maybe.
Well,
because they seem to find us easily boring.
Or
they did at the time anyway.
But I want you to continue, but it's interesting because with humans, staring in somebody's eyes when they're talking to you is actually honorable, because
with humans it's different. Yeah, we're different than other animals. Almost every other animal, it's an offense, and you can't do that unless you have a very intimate relationship with them, right?
Yeah.
Then, like, an intimate friendship, you can like look at each other's eyes for a bit. But I mean, obviously I'd never met this Sasquatch before, so he looked away. And also, I think it was the same friend of mine said that when he had encountered Sasquatch, they were often looking away from him, like keeping their eyes away from him. So not to have full-on eye-to-eye contact, unless it's an extremely specialized situation.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was just interesting also because there was a ditch that went down towards the trees. It went down 2 feet. So I figured this individual, because their eye shine met mine exactly. I'm 6'3". So I figured I'd add 2 feet on that, and that would be about 8 feet tall.
Yep.
But then when I went back there later, I went down the ditch and found that there was another 2 foot drop down into the trees. So that was actually, he had 4 feet on me. So he was actually 10 feet tall.
10 feet, yeah.
Interesting. So let's ask everybody. Let's ask everybody then. So we'll stay with you. How has your life changed since your connection to Sasquatch?
Oh, wow.
I know it's a big question.
Yeah. I always, since I was a kid, believed there was something to do with magic and mythology that was real, that it wasn't just all people's imagination. It wasn't just, what people would like to see happen, or an expression of their fears even, but that there was some truth to ancient mythology, and people's belief in magic. People's stories don't just come out of nowhere, but have some truth to them, at least before fiction is used to embellish them.
Yep.
And what I discovered, I guess, after I went to the Ozarks and had these experiences is that this is actually true. There is magic. There is the fantastic that is maybe fantastic to us, but is just a matter of fact to others. And, you know, these things can be real. There's this added element to life beyond, well, I know we were talking about the mundane earlier, but I'm talking about another kind of mundane when I say that there's more to life than the mundane beliefs that we have about life in general. Our consensus reality, let's say. Like here we have a consensus that such things as we've been talking about are possible. But in the greater world, the consensus is that none of these things are possible. So if we can break through that consensus reality and get to a point where we're actually discovering something that is both real and also compelling and meaningful to us, that teaches us something, then we can live a fuller life, as opposed to believing, well, that these things are real, these things are not real. And that's that. There's more to it than that. So it just proved all of my suspicions to me. Once Sasquatch started communicating with me, I knew that there's more to life than meets the eye.
Awesome.
Wow, that that is so well said. That's sort of the vein I was going to go in,
Thanks.
is just opening up to the magic. And, you know, I have this real scientific part of my brain that I think a lot of people think they have. I question that at this point in our evolution. But there's more than what science is telling us. There's more out there than we can see, than we can experiment with our eyes, ears, you know, collect evidence. There's more, and it's the magic that you're talking about. And that was so well said. I'll shut up. And oh yeah, that was great. And I actually need to go, so I'll hop off here. Thank you so much, Brian, for inviting me. This has been amazing. So nice to meet all of you guys.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was good to meet you, Lee.
And like I said, if you want to talk to any of us or whatever about your book, and feel free, because that's what it's all about.
Thank you.
We want to get
Or if you wanted to do your own show, have you on your own show, any one of you would be great. You and Chris and yeah.
We've had, Lee is welcome to come on for her own show. We've had Graham on like 3 times. Doesn't mean you're not going to be back on. We've had Ken on 2 or 3 times. I would like to get Chris on. Would you like to do a show with us?
Sure.
I'll talk to you about it afterwards or whatever.
Okay.
And next day or so, or later today or something. But thank you, Lee, for coming. And I don't know, did it open up your awareness at all?
Yeah. It just just as much confirmation as I can get at this point. Because I'm still working through the last little bit of, are these people crazy?
Yeah.
And I'm starting to drop that. So
So guys, I had to go outside because what I'm going to tell you, I have never told no one. So you asked how the Sasquatch has changed your life. At 14, when I watched The Legend of Boggy Creek, I knew then that I had to find out more about these things. And as a young kid, I was abused. I've never told nobody, so I walked outside, but I was abused as a kid by a family member. And what has Sasquatch done for me to change me? He's helping me get through that feeling of not destroying yourself over what happened. And I know he's helped me, and that travel to get past those bad times I went through. And now I'm in my 60s now, and I'm flourishing, and I'm not a dead person from what has happened to me. Sasquatch has actually helped me in a sense to be better, not to take what had happened to me, um, to let it destroy my life. And so it goes a lot deeper than just finding a footprint or hearing a story or telling a story. It's changed my life in the sense where it's better. And Brian always asks people, what has Sasquatch done to change your life? And some of them, people that terrorizes them, they don't understand. But to me, I think the Squatch has really helped in my inner being. Being, he knew there's something better for you, boy, and it's out there. And we're not going to take it from you. They're going to give it to you. And I think he's helped in my sense of getting my travels through getting older now and accepting that in the past that's gone now. But he's helped me a lot in that way. So I've never shared that with no one. My wife
Yeah,
don't
that
even.
that made your heart much more open and softer, and you're a really good person. So that
Yeah.
to me, that's the spiritual awakening or spiritually coming home to yourself. Yeah, that's powerful stuff.
That's profound.
Thank you for sharing that with us, man. We're honored.
Yeah,
and,
thanks, Ken.
And you're worthy, man. You're worthy. Don't let well, they've already told you that and given you that, but don't let anyone take anything away from you.
There you go, guys.
A beautiful human being, man.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. Did you want to share a story, a quick story too, or
Well, probably the best story I have is my second sighting of a Sasquatch. And earlier, he was talking about the brown reddish one, and that's what I saw at 8 feet. And it was only 20 yards, my second sighting. And when it looked at me from 20 feet away with those eyes, I saw a look of disgust and contempt. I saw something that it wanted to see you, to know you, but it was disgusted with me because I spent 3 months in the area habituating it, doing all the stuff out there that you're banging your trees, just a habituation site. And one day I got the sighting, and then I went back about a month later, not even that much. That time frame was smaller than a month, and got the second one, the big red one. And I thought the red one was the leader. He was the alpha. He was the watcher. But my first sighting was a little juvenile. And it seems like I have luck with the little ones. I love my trackway. If you go on Bigfoot Loose USA and look at a website there called Bigfoot Loose USA, I have a very excellent trackway of a juvenile of a 5.5-inch shoe. Now, if you take that 5.5-inch shoe and put it on a human, that age range is between 18 months and 24 months year old, which a human would fit in that shoe. And that trackway, though, that I saw with that juvenile was so inline, and the distance was almost 3 feet. I'm just saying. And Brian talked about all that trackways and all this, but this trackway to me was, there's some human footprints in there, but it's like we have to have humans be around Bigfoots. Bigfoot has to be around humans, so we're not going to get sightings. But the juvenile trackway that I saw that year, I thought, what little kid is out here walking in a straight inline stride, and right next to it's an 8-inch track going, and what are they both doing? They're going right into the forest. And I just thought, this is awesome. I love these little guys. I love the juveniles. So, my first sighting was a juvenile. He's looking at me at 80 yards out over a rock, staring at me. And that was my first sighting after 20 years of being out there, doing it. And some people get it within 3 days, and some not even looking for it and get it. But when you're out there trying to, like you say, get them to you, it didn't work. I had to break down that barrier to say something different, to accept me. Finally, after the acceptance, which you do feel that later on in life, you're just going to feel this acceptance. Then the floodgates open and things start coming and happening more. And then, like you said, don't take that for granted. Take it as a gift. So I really feel that they've changed my life in so many ways. So
Yeah. And
Wow.
I didn't mean to say that I love seeing the stuff they build. I love seeing the evidence of them or whatever. My point is that it's not the end all. It's not where it stops. That's just like a bonus, and it gives you insight into their terrestrial lives or whatever. But their teachings are what is important to me. But it's all wonderful. It's all fun. Thank you, Ken. That was beautiful. Chris, you want to end it off?
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out what I should. Well, probably how they've affected me is, since I was in high school, I've had all kinds of experiences, psychic, and even my friends in high school said, I'd tell them my experiences and they said, wow, we think you ought to go see a psychiatrist. And I'd say, so, who am I to talk to? Nobody. And so, and then I got in, the guru and the spiritual practices. So I found some other people, but then I started having experiences with Sasquatch, and I said, here's a very spiritual group of people, and they are real friends. I mean, they know who I am. I don't know exactly who they are, but at least we're on a friendship basis, right? And a psychic basis. Now I don't need to look for friends. I don't know if you understand what that means. It's like, it's like I have a family here,
Yeah.
And even though my immediate family thinks I'm absolutely nuts, except my wife, she's afraid of Sasquatch, but she believes they're here. But it's just such a nice feeling to feel that somebody is there who really deeply is a real friend. That's all I can say.
And I bet you trust them more than just about any human,
Absolutely.
Yeah. Thanks, man.
That's pretty deep because like I don't have that many human friends, but those guys definitely feel like they're friends to me, and they come and check on me, and they give me little, hellos, and yeah, my life is richer and better. Yeah.
Well, you met me, so duh.
Yeah, but I can't go over to your house because it cost me about $2,000 to go over there, and you know what I'm saying? You're completely on another continent.
Yeah. Well, guys, I guess we could go on forever and ever and ever, but I guess we should wrap it up. And this was actually pretty good. We're gonna have to have more of these, Beans. We've had these before. This was a
Yeah,
good.
I think so. Yeah. Like I said, there's that guy Dan Winter. I'd like to have like a round table with him. That would be so people can ask, what is the academic, what is the science behind invisibility and mind speak and portals and all that. This guy's got the inside scoop on all that.
This
Well,
Dan Winter, he's
The
a
crazy-
scientist, right?
The crazy science guy with white hair. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. I don't know what he looks like, but I've been in communication with some guy named Dan Winter for some years. And
Science guy, and
France.
he's all about
American.
energy and frequency and
Right.
that guy. Oh yeah, well
Yeah.
he's the guy.
Yeah.
So you talk to him?
On the internet, I mean, just on email. His wife was involved in the same spiritual path that I was in. And that's
Okay.
how he found out through her from me that, anyway.
Yeah. Well, get him
Yeah,
on.
he talks about the physics of bliss, which is kind of interesting.
Yeah.
Of what? Glyphs?
The physics
bliss.
of bliss.
Oh, bliss. Bliss.
Yeah, it's actually there's a phenomenon, an energy cascade that makes that happen.
Yeah, well, that only makes sense, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay, everybody.
Centripetal, Mr. Centripetal.
Well, ask him on. You know him, right?
I don't know him. No, I just watch his videos.
I could send him an email.
Yeah. Tell
Well,
him that.
that's going to have to be coordinated because we really need to get, just like this one, you need to get enough people to really.
I don't know that he knows anything about Sasquatch. I mean, I don't know. So
He doesn't have to know anything about Sasquatch. You just got to know how consciousness works and how the energy system works. So we're going to him as a science investigator, and he's got. I mean, I don't know if you ever seen his videos, but he's got these PDFs and these like these PDFs, but PowerPoint things, and he's just got charts and everything. So this, to me, the idea of the show is to like be able to send it out over the internet for all the other people who are into like the ape only or physical only, yeah, and show that this stuff is not only real, but there's scientific data and scientific results from scientific experiments to show stuff like spirituality and past life and all that kind of stuff is real.
yeah, I've just communicated with him about free energy and that kind of science and stuff.
Yeah.
Well, if you want to reach out to them and say, hey, there's this interesting show, they would like to interview you. Give her, yeah.
Well, definitely you could put a feeler out to him about Sasquatch because
Yeah, I'll I have to remind myself or I'll forget. Let's see.
because we all have questions like how does telepathy work, and he seems to know that kind of stuff. How do portals work? How does invisibility work? And I think he would jump on a chance to do his thing.
I mean, I'm assuming it's the same Dan Winter. I mean, the guy I'm talking about is into all what you're talking about. So,
Yeah. You never watched any of his videos?
no.
No, Dan Winter's got a channel on YouTube. So
Oh, really? Just like
Just
query
Dan
his
Winter.
name.
yeah.
I'm gonna check them out.
I'll look up.
Okay, guys, what do you think?
That was awesome.
Hey,
Great.
sometimes would it be so cool to get the researchers' wives on to talk about their husbands. Now, my wife right next to me here without
No, I'll pass on that one.
yeah, well, listen what she says. What'd you say,
Oh.
Diane?
He's crazy.
Yes, these are what they all say. But you didn't know for the first 10 years of our marriage what I did. I couldn't tell her. For 10 years, guys, we're married to this lady. Diane?
25 now.
Yeah.
Actually,
So-
the thing that convinced my wife that they are here is actually a year ago in March, we had maybe an inch and a half of wet snow, right? And she was going out to feed the chickens, and right by our driveway, there was these footprints of a child's bare footprint walking in the snow, and then they just disappeared.
Yeah.
Wow.
She's that convinced her that somebody's here.
So no kids out there walking around in your yard, right? Barefoot.
No, barefoot, yeah.
Yeah, and they just don't disappear. With them.
Right.
Yeah, and disappear. Yeah. Well,
Okay,
thanks,
guys. Thank
Thanks,
you
Graham.
for coming.
Chris.
Graham, Chris, Ken,
Leah. Yeah. So Leah? Is that what her name was?
her name was
Lee.
Lee, Tom, even though I don't know what happened to him,
Yeah.
Carter. Am I missing
Carter.
something?
No.
Anyway, thanks
That's
to everybody.
everybody.
Thanks to everybody who contributed to the show today, and it was really a fun one. It was most of them were.
Oh,
So,
is it?
Oh, and for,
What's that?
Graham, when I was thinking that when I went out for my cigarette, I realized what the Sasquatch were talking about to me about that, from the smallest thing can come the greatest experience, right? Well, what they were talking about, one of the things that they were talking about is breathing. And if you do breath work meditation, it's just a little thing. You're just sitting there and you're breathing and you're feeling it, right? But from that can come this incredible, bliss or connectedness or,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? It's
That's
just
true.
breathing, you know what I mean? So from the smallest thing can come great experiences for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's the ethos of it all.
Okay, guys. On behalf of Port Cunningham and the world's handsomest man, Frank Oliver Beans, this has been the Pork and Beans Show. Thanks everybody for showing up today. Love to all of you, and hope you, continued success and love and joy in your lives. And we shall see you all next time, my friends.
Thanks to all the Sasquatch for showing up and helping us out.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
I love the snow. Don't you know? I wanna be old blade. All the bugs coming down. Taking my phone. Hot and high, hot and high, hot and high, high. For the tummy, oh my, love a big old plate of pork and beans. Goody, 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 goody. Love it, love it, love it. In the tummy. Love baby, love high, love ooh, love why. I love me some bowling rain. Don't you know you gotta need that feed. You got to have some pork and beans. Pork and beans. I'm gonna holla, yo, mashed potato, oh, have it now, don't wait for later, hot and high.